Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had become the villain part 2. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 3, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story 𝗧𝗵𝗲 from Wattpad. So let's start the video. RDPOV. After a few exhausting days in school, things have gotten slightly better. Class 1A wasn't being dragged around with assignments and homework from Aizawa, so he decided to give them a little break for now. As they finally had room to breathe, they managed to catch up with others and asked them about what was going on with their lives. While the others caught up with each other, there was one angry Pomeranian that was just sulking at his desk while complaining for no apparent reason. Katsuki is still looking as angry as always while looking at Izumi whenever he gets the chance, and Izumi is just giving him the silent treatment. It has been going on ever since that day, and she had no idea what to do with this situation either. The bell rang, signaling the start of their first heroics class of the school year. Izumi clenches her fists knowing who's coming to the class as she gets goosebumps about it. She couldn't wait for who was about to enter those doors. So who do you believe is gonna teach us today? Uraraka asked Ida, knowing he would know the answer. I don't know either, but I bet that UA has chosen the most qualified person for teaching this class, Ida said while chopping his hands. Then suddenly the doors were open, and a certain blonde hero entered the room. Haha, I am coming in like a normal person, All Might yelled while laughing at the class and showing his smile as always. It's All Might. Everyone got excited as the #1 hero himself is teaching this class. The class cheered with this news as they all get pumped up to start this class. Yeah, it is I, All Might, and now I'm here to teach this class. Right now we will be doing battle training. As soon as he tells the class what they would be doing in this class, everyone just got more excited. But in order to be heroes, you need to look the part. All Might pressed the button that dropped all of the suitcases with their own hero costumes filled with numbers on them. Now go get change and head to ground beta, All Might shouted in excitement as the student began to move. After the class was done changing, they headed to ground beta as All Might began to compliment their hero costume. You all looked great. Now, let me explain how this class works. Today you all will be doing an urban combat training. We will split you all into a team of 2 and put them against each other. One team being heroes and the other is a villain. For the villains to win, they need to protect the bomb till the time they will be given is run out or they defeat the heroes. And for the heroes to win, they need to touch the bomb or capture both the villain. Now let's draw the lots for your role today. When the student finishes drawing their lots, All Might announce the first 2 teams that entered the training first. Now the first teams that starts today training. From Team A are Uraraka Ochako and Katsumi Bakugu as heroes, and Team D are Izumi Yagi and Katsuki Bakugu as villains. All Might announced to the class while showing the result. That one made Izumi and Bakugu's eyes shoot up as they are staring at each other. They felt uncomfortable with this training simulation setup. First, they had to stay in the same classroom, then they were in the same class, and now they had to stay in the same teams. Together. With no way that both of them couldn't talk to each other at least once. All right, villain team, you had 10 minutes to head in and prepare. All Might spoke from the intercom to the 2 young heroes. After All Might announced the teams, both Izumi and Bakugu entered the ground beta and headed into the building without uttering a single word. They could hear their own echoes as they stepped into the building even more. When they finally arrive at the bomb, they stop their foot. It looks like the bomb is located on the 5th floor. So what should we do, Katsuki? Izumi asked him while trying to make small talk to the ash-blonde hero that stood in front of her. Why don't you tell me, Izumi? You seem to know all the answers to everything, right? Katsuki answered while grunting a little. Izumi sighed and glanced at him. Look, we have to work together or we're gonna fail the class. Izumi tries to talk to his teammate. Huh, that's hilarious, Katsuki laughed mockingly, and what's that supposed to mean? Izumi asked him as if she didn't understand. Nothing, just that all of a sudden we talked as if nothing is wrong, right? Katsuki said sarcastically. Look, we're gonna talk after we finish with this exercise, Izumi says while feeling weary of this conversation again. And what makes you think that I would want to have a conversation with you? Katsuki asked her back. Katsuki Izumi said, but, hero team, you may now enter the building, all might say from the intercom. They both looked pissed cause they just wasted 5 minutes talking only. We don't have time for this. Look, I'll go downstairs and take care of Katsumi while you stay here and beat 𝗬𝗧𝗏. Izumi said her plan. And why should I stay here and you get all the action all by yourself? Katsuki asked her not to agree to the plan. Clearly because I don't want to see the building get leveled by your explosion, Izumi stated to Bakugo while headed downstairs, leaving Katsuki all by himself. Izumi is walking downstairs to the 4th floor while thinking about how to proceed with the plan. She tries to clear floor by floor, trying to find the heroes in this building. Finding nothing, she moved to the 3rd floor. She caught the sound of someone stepping closer. She took a peek and roughly around 200 meters in front of her, she met Katsumi and 𝗬𝗧𝗏 standing there looking for her. Thinking that she may have a chance, she tries to sneak attack them from behind and gain an advantage from it. She tries to use her quirk to grab both of them and finish the training as fast as she could, only when an explosion comes to her earshot. She snaps her head trying to take a look at what's going on, only to see Katsuki there attacking them head-on. What's going on? She thought he would be upstairs guarding the bomb, not go downstairs and blast the building like some sort of maniac. Katsuki, what are you doing here? Izumi asked the ash-blonde male while shouting at him and coming out from her hideout. Shut up, Izumi, I'm gonna beat them to the ground and prove that I'm the best here, Katsuki said as he charged toward them, his hands raising, causing an explosion to pop into his hand. Izumi wanted to finish this training as quickly as she could, decided to use her telekinesis and grab both of them and win this match quickly, only for Katsuki to propel himself in front of them and accidentally use her quirk to hold him instead of them. What are you doing? He shouts at Izumi while hovering in the air. Me, you're the one that blocks my shot. Just go back and let me take care of them. Izumi yelled back at him. Shut up, Izumi, I win this fight on my own. I don't need your help at all. Katsuki roared back at her. Katsumi now. 𝗬𝗧𝗏 shouts in the middle. They keep bickering with each other until they don't realize that Katsumi has used her explosion to blindsight them for a while. They closed their eyes for a moment, only for 𝗬𝗧𝗏 to use her quirk on both of the villains and made them float in the air. Let me go, you beach. Katsuki yelled at her. Not listening to her brother's rant, Katsumi chooses to use this chance to search for the bomb while the heroes are trapped because of 𝗬𝗧𝗏's quirk. After 5 minutes, all might shout at their intercom. Heroes win. When Katsuki heard that, he was livid. He lost. No, he never lost. He always wins no matter what. He's strong. He's the best in this school. They must have cheated or something. Having had enough with the bullshit, Katsuki decided to settle once and for all who's the strongest, and that's him. He raises his gauntlet toward those 3 that still congratulate each other. He smirks as he's about to pull the pin off his gauntlet. All Might, who saw this from the camera in the observation room, yelled to Katsuki immediately as soon he saw that, hoping that he wasn't late. Wait. Young Bakugo, stop. You could kill them, he yelled as the class went wide on what was about to happen. They won't die if they dodge it, he said harshly as he pulled the pin and a huge explosion just burst into the room. Everyone in the UA could hear the loud boom as almost all the teachers stopped the lesson and tried to figure out what was going on. Aizawa was wide awake with the sound of the explosion as he wasn't happy with it. Nizu, who was on his desk writing paperwork, was shocked a little by the loud noise as his tea was spilled a little. All the teaching staff are thinking the exact same as soon as they heard that are we under attack. Nizu immediately turned the emergency alarm and ordered all students to evacuate the building and enter the shelter that was placed underground. Power Loader, Ectoplasm, 13, and Hound Dog are helping the student to evacuate to the shelter. Aizawa, Present Mike, Midnight, and Cementos are immediately headed to the ground beta to figure out what's wrong. And Snipe, Vlad, and Nizu are still in UA building trying to secure the place in case the villain is trying to get the rest of the students. When they arrived at the site, they didn't see a single villain in the building. They were wary as they saw a building caught in the smoke. All of them moved quickly but carefully in case there was an ambush. But when they arrived, The building was nearly destroyed as the building structure wasn't as sturdy as it was before. They still didn't see a single villain, but a blonde oversized musclehead is jumping out of the building that was nearly destroyed while holding someone. Aizawa, I'm leaving this in your hand. I'm headed to Recovery Girl. All Might yelled as he jumped around the building. Aizawa, who's getting worried that some of the students might get caught in an accident, decided to run to the building trying to save the students. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 fortified the building. Mike, midnight with me, Aizawa ordered them as they began to work. Aizawa, Mike, and Midnight scour the building from top to bottom and find someone standing shakingly on the third floor with a guilty and shocked expression and a smoking palm. The culprit keeps muttering words that it wasn't his fault. His hand was shaking furiously as he looked at the destruction in front of his eyes. Without a second thought, Aizawa quickly uses his scarf to strangle the culprit and drag him to the principal's office. Nizu looked at his document on the table and took another sip from his third cup of green tea. He looked at the report that was brought to him a couple of minutes ago and read it intensely as his eyes never leave the ash-blonde kid standing in front of him. He had left the kid standing there for about 30 minutes. Katsuki's nerves were about to explode, but he knew that if he did have another outburst, especially in front of the principal, then he would get a one-way ticket straight to Tartarus instantly. Nizu set his cup down, finally breaking the silence that filled the room. I already notified the students that it was a gas leak that caused the explosion and it was nothing but a false alarm. The teacher that wasn't participating in the investigation has been notified and they weren't pleased with all. Izumi Yagi, who's using her quirk to create a last-minute psychic force field to shield your sister and her friend from your large explosion, is already out of the infirmary 10 minutes ago as she suffered from second-degree burns to her right hand. Your parents have been notified of your action and now are headed here as we speak. So, what do you have to say for yourself, young man? Nizu, who's just finished speaking, is looking at Katsuki, who's just standing there with no answer at all. I don't know what got over me. I was just pissed when they beat me at that exercise. I'm just mad. There's something wrong with that test. I couldn't possibly lose, Katsuki ranted to the principal. I was the best in this class. I'm the strongest in this school. I'm the next #1 hero. Katsuki said as he looked at the principal with his fist clenched and his knuckle turned white. And is that how the #1 hero acted? Said the voice behind him. Katsuki turned around and he was met with a pissed Aizawa, present Mike, and Midnight. So the number hero always throws a tantrum every time he is defeated and his pride is damaged, is that how you're saying? Aizawa asked the young boy in front of him. No, Katsuki replied immediately. Did he punch a building to relieve his stress from losing or failing to save a civilian while disregarding the safety of the civilian that's inside the building? Aizawa challenges the young boy again. Of course not. All Might won't do something like that. Katsuki shouts at his homeroom teacher. And did All Might bully his son till he's dead? Aizawa asked the boy one more time, only to be met with silence as Katsuki just grunt in annoyance. Katsuki had no answer to that. He knows that his teacher is mentioning what happened 10 months ago as if it was just yesterday. I've read your report, Bakugo. Out of everyone in your little group, you're the one that still hasn't attended therapy as everyone else in the last 10 months, Aizawa said as he used his quirk on the boy standing in front of him now. You have until the end of the week to go to therapy, and that's not a negotiation, or I will drag you personally to Tartarus prison cell. I don't give a damn whether the HPSC will suspend my license or not, 'cause right now I'm fed up with your toddler tantrum attitude contaminating my class and this school. Aizawa spoke harshly at Bakugo, who just grunts for not being in the mood to hear a lecture from his teacher. Get out of here, you're suspended for a week, Aizawa said, and Bakugo just compiled as he shuts the door immediately after he left. When the doors closed, his colleague just looked at him while shocked a little by what just happened. Sho, don't you think you're a bit harsh on the kid? Hisashi said while looking at his friend. Yeah, I have to admit that was quite harsh, even for you, Nomuri said while sympathizing with the young boy a little. From the way I see it, the kid deserves it, Aizawa said as he just walked away. It was already evening and most of the students were already headed to their homes. Katsuki had just finished talking to the principal and his homeroom teacher, and he just walked away from the principal's office as he contemplated what was going on. He just fired off a huge explosion in the middle of the test with Izumi and her sister there. He had no explanation for his action. He walked to the corridor and grabbed at his hair as he shook his head. He nearly killed his friend, he nearly killed his own sister, he nearly killed Izumi. What would all might say after he just nearly killed his daughter? What would his classmates say after they had just witnessed that someone nearly killed their friend? What would his parents say after they met with him? Would they kick him out of the house? As Katsuki was grunting and mad at everything, he didn't realize that someone was there. He looked up and his eyes were wide open as to who was standing in front of him, because she was the last person that he wants anyone to see in this state. His own sister. Katsuki was currently sitting on a park bench near UA school as he was contemplating what was going on just now. He was being dragged by his homeroom teacher after destroying a building during battle training, and he nearly killed his friends just because he lost in a single battle. Then he was reprimanded by the principal for his action during the battle training, not to mention that his homeroom teacher gave him an ultimatum or he could kiss his career goodbye. Now he was sitting on a bench and his sister was sitting beside him as well with a bandage wrapped around her wrist because she got caught in the blast a little. "Congratulations, you were able to start your day with a bang," Katsumi said sarcastically. "F off," Katsuki said to his sister. "I heard during the battle training, before you leveled that building to the ground, that you and Izumi were having an argument or something." Katsumi asked in interest. "Nothing, it's fine," Katsuki said while grunting and without looking at his sister, but Katsumi wasn't satisfied with the answer. "Fine. Do you listen to yourself? You bicker like an old married couple in that building and we could hear your loud voice echoing from the entrance." Katsumi argued. "Look, what happened between Izumi and me is none of your business," Katsuki tells her sister while trying to hold his emotions. "The hell it is, you just blasted that building to high heaven, and for what? Lose in a little fight." Katsumi said to him, "Look, it was an accident, all right, I didn't mean it." Katsuki yelled at her. How is that an accident? I saw it, All Might saw it, and the rest of the class saw you pull that pin and fire off that explosion that you stored in that gauntlet of yours." Katsumi challenged her brother again. "F off, sis, what's your point?" Katsuki asked her sister where this was going. "My point is that you had an issue, you've been acting like this for nearly a year and you still had that same attitude. Stomping off the pout every time something isn't going your way. And you still haven't changed." Katsumi lectured him. "When are you gonna grow up and start taking responsibility for your actions?" Katsumi asked him as she was starting to get pissed. "I don't see why I had to change, I'm feeling good as usual." He answered her sister. "Oh, is that why you hadn't visited Izuku in the last 10 months, is that it? Because you're feeling great?" Katsumi yelled back. "Why should I visit him anyway? He's already dead. That useless worm only gets in my way anyway and thinks he could be a hero. What a waste of space he is." Katsuki yelled out, "Don't you dare say that to him, he was our friend and you still hadn't woken up and lived inside of that bubble of yours." Katsumi yelled at him. "I can say whatever I want. That Deku is nothing more but a waste of space anyway." Katsuki roared back. "He's been nothing but a good friend to you, and what did you repay him back?" She yelled, "The only thing that Deku did was ruin my chance at this school. He's been a pebble when he was alive and now when he's dead. If he just gives up on his delusional dream, then I wouldn't be in this mess." Katsuki yelled, and all of a sudden he was met with a slap on his face and a crying Katsumi. "You had no right to deny his dream, you know all he ever wanted was to be a good friend to us and we just stepped on it like dirt. Maybe if you had just shut your mouth that day at the playground, then maybe he would still be here." Katsumi said quietly while began to cry. "You're not in control of his life and you certainly don't get to treat him like he's not a human being," Katsumi said as she tried to hold her tears, but they won't hold with her brother's next words. "It's not like he's a human anyway," Katsuki said without any care for his word. When Katsuki said that, she just ran away from her brother while crying and leaving him by himself. She couldn't handle her brother's attitude right now, so she just ran away from there and cried. When Katsumi walks away, her brother is standing in the middle by himself. He was pissed. Why should he get treated like this? He was the best and the best don't deserve punishment. This school should be grateful that they have someone of his caliber joining this school, but they treat him as if he's done something wrong or something. It was Deku's fault as always. Even when he's dead, he still gets in his way to be a #1 hero. Why can't he just die and no one would bother it? It's like they were trying to pin the blame on him. Not wanting to be here any longer, he decided to get up and head back to his house while grunting and complaining as usual. The rest of the week flew quickly for Class 1A, as it was a very quiet and peaceful week for them without the presence of the resident Pomeranian in the room. The class continued with their lesson without Katsuki as they just moved on as if never happened. After what happened during battle training, Katsuki was suspended for a week after his little stunt of firing off a large explosion without considering a possible accident that may happen. When he came home, he was getting lectured by his parents for his explosive attitude, and they gave him a warning that if one more accident like this happened, then he can say goodbye to UA immediately. The very next day after his suspension, his parents told him to go to therapy and attend anger management no matter what, and by the tone his father used to talk to him, he decided to just do it so that his chance of being a hero doesn't slip away. On the last day of his suspension, Katsuki came to the class and he's back to his arrogant self, not caring for any whatsoever. And the rest of them just ignored him as always. It was the final PRD on a Monday afternoon, and Aizawa-sensei had some things that he would like to announce. Alright, now that everyone is here, I can begin. After the whole fiasco during the battle training, Nizu had decided that some other quirk training exercise should be started before all of you move to the advanced. Aizawa explains while looking at the certain Pomeranian in the back. So, for tomorrow, our class will be heading to a rescue training facility known as the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or known as USJ. The school has provided a teacher at the facility to help you train with this subject, and you would meet with the teacher at the location, Aizawa explained with his monotone voice. You all need to gather at the parking hall at 1:00 o'clock tomorrow. If you wish to wear your hero costume, then the school has allowed it. Don't be late or I'll expel you. Aizawa finished explaining. Before any more questions could be said, Aizawa dismissed the class and everyone began to pack their belongings and prepare to go home. As Izumi was about to leave, Katsuki approached her immediately after the class was dismissed. Hey, Izumi, Katsuki called her in a loud tone. What do you want, Katsuki? Izumi asked back with an annoying tone. What's wrong with you? You said we talk after we've finished that training session, Katsuki said without any care as if he hadn't done anything wrong. Oh, now you want to talk? Did you have an epiphany this morning or something? Izumi asked him with a sarcastic tone. Look, I just want to apologize for what I did, Katsuki said while clicking his tongue. She took a glance at him and said with an uninterested look. Is that it? Izumi said, W. Katsuki was a little surprised by the answer given by her. Good, I thought it was something important, guess I was wrong, Izumi said while waving her hand telling him to go away. Look, can we talk for a moment? Katsuki asked her. I'm busy, leave me alone, Izumi said while grabbing her school bag. 𝗕𝗏𝗏, listen to me. Katsuki said while raising his voice a little and grabbing her wrist. Or what are you gonna blast me again? Izumi taunts him. You said we're gonna have a talk after the battle training, Katsuki replied while arguing with her. Oh, clearly I got your message loud and clear after you blasted me in that building. Is that your way of saying F off or shut up? I always have those two mixed up. Izumi replied sarcastically. That wasn't my intention at all, Katsuki argued back. So what, you think that makes you right? To fire off an explosion in my face just because of a petty argument? How fragile is your ego? Izumi shot back as she yanked her arm from his grip. Just stay away from me, she said for the last time. As soon as she said that and left, Katsuki just grabbed his hair and tried to pull it off as he was wondering why she didn't want him to make things right. It was Tuesday and Class 1A was already sitting in a bus while heading to USJ. They chatted, gossiped, and played a little game while waiting to get there. The bus is filled with many talking, much to Aizawa's displeasure as he was trying to get some sleep, while a certain male Pomeranian dog and a short green-haired girl sitting in the back were not joining the conversation at all. They just sit in a 𝗕𝗏𝗁𝗏 silence while not looking at each other. After 20 minutes, They finally arrived at a large dome in front of them with a large staircase leading to a likewise large door with the letter USJ on the front of the dome. The class looked at the building in awe while Aizawa-sensei told him to stop wasting time and move on. When the doors opened, the group was met with the space hero, 𝗬𝗏. The students began to gather around as she began to explain the true purpose of this training and why rescue training is very important. She also explains the importance of using your quirks with caution, which the class internally agreed on as they could cause harm to others. Alright, now let's begin with what we'll be doing. Aizawa began to explain but stopped talking as the lights began to flicker and shut down completely. And suddenly Kirishima spoke to him. Whoa, you have fake villains as well. That's so cool. Kirishima commented while showing his toothy teeth. Aizawa looked in the direction Kirishima pointed and suddenly a purple mist appeared in the middle. Several people began to step out, and by the looks of it, they weren't friendly, especially the handman villain that gives him an ominous aura. No. Those are real villains. Aizawa shouted as the rest of the students panicked. 𝗬𝗏, protect the student. He shouted, before going downstairs to face the villains. Kids this way. Hurry. 𝗬𝗏 shouted as she pointed to the entrance, telling them to escape. Why should I escape? I could take down those villains myself. Katsuki roared while readying for battle. For God's sake, will you set your ego aside for a while? Look at those numbers, there's no way you could beat them by yourself. Kaminari yelled at the Pomeranian. Don't tell me what to do, you extra. Katsuki yelled, we don't have time for this. Kirishima immediately lifted Bakugo and put him on his shoulder like a potato sack. Get off me, shitty hair. I'm gonna beat those villains. Katsuki grunts as he is being lifted to make a getaway. They were about to reach the door when suddenly the mist villain appeared in front of them, blocking the gate. Greetings, we are the League of Villains. I apologize for intruding unannounced, but we have invited ourselves to kill the symbol of peace, All Might himself. The mist villain explained. He should be here, right? So where is he? Or is there a change of schedule perhaps? The mist villain said. All of the sudden, Katsuki, Kirishima, and Izumi all went charging at the villain. Katsuki aimed an explosion at his face, while Kirishima readied to punch him on the right side, and Izumi charged her quirk to hit him on his left side. But all three of their attacks missed and did not hit the villain at all. Impressive, for being a student. As expected from this generation's golden eggs. The mist villain comments on their futile attempt. Everyone, get back, black hole, 𝗬𝗏 shouted as a cap on her finger popped off, and sucked everything. Black hole, certainly a powerful quirk and dangerous. Too bad that you don't have enough battle experience, since you are a rescue hero after all, he said, as a portal comes behind her. Her quirk backfired as her back was ripped open and she fell unconscious. 𝗬𝗏, Uraraka screamed while looking at the space hero lying unconscious. Now that the biggest problem has been taken care of, let's begin our little show, shall we? He said, as several vortexes appeared and sucked nearly everyone into the vortex except a couple of students, like Uraraka, Ida, Ashido, Shoji, Sato, and others. Everyone is screaming in panic as the mist swallows the students and separates them. Soon, everyone went into the vortex and we could see Izumi fall onto the ground as she groaned in pain until someone weighed her back. Izumi, is that you? Azui said while looking at her fellow green-haired friend. Tsu, is that you? Oh, thank God. Izumi groans as she tries to stand up. Where are we anyway? Izumi wonders as she stands on a boat. It looks like a flood zone, Azui explained as she looked at the surroundings. Suddenly, a villain is trying to get on the boat but Izumi beats him to it by punching him and fell into the water. Then suddenly someone is screaming in fear on the boat. Izumi, Azui. Someone spoke their name. Mineta. Is that you? Izumi asked. Yeah, it's me, what happened here? The purple midget spoke, it seems like they teleported us here, guess they do it at random, not specific. Otherwise, they wouldn't send Tsuyu here knowing she would have an advantage. Izumi explained, true, so what should we do? Azui asked while looking at the villain that was still on the water. Right now, Izumi began to think about how to escape from this predicament. There are multiple villains surrounding them and there are over 20 of them there. But they were only 3 people there. As her brain began to come up with a solution, she turned to both of them. I have an idea. 𝗵𝗃𝗲, throw your ball as much as you can towards the waters. 𝗬𝗏, after I gave the signal, grab 𝗵𝗃𝗲 with your tongue and get away from here as fast as you can. I'm gonna create a shockwave and aim it in the middle of the water. That should cause a spiral to form. Izumi explained her idea. That might have worked, Izumi. I'm impressed you could come up with that plan. 𝗬𝗏𝗄 complimented her friend. All right, let's do this, 𝗵𝗃𝗲 screamed as he threw his ball at the ball. Then all of a sudden Izumi jumped off the boat and aimed her finger at the water and flicked her finger to create a vortex in the water. Now! Izumi yelled and 𝗬𝗏𝗄 grabbed 𝗵𝗃𝗲 and made their getaway as far away as they could. As soon as they landed safely, the purple midget spoke first. Holy CRP, it worked. You're amazing, Izumi. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 complimented her. Thanks, guys. Come on, we should check the entrance and see if we could meet up with others, Izumi said while leading the group towards the entrance door. Finally, they reached the center where they were hiding. They just saw their homeroom teacher get pinned down by a large bird creature and a hand villain standing beside him. The creature is almost as big as All Might in terms of size. It manages to beat Aizawa-sensei to a pulp. We have to help him, Izumi said as she was getting ready to fight the villain. Hold on, we can't just run in there and fight the villain, we're gonna lose badly, you know, 𝗵𝗃𝗲 argued while almost crying. Izumi, 𝗵𝗃𝗲 is right, we need to approach this carefully, we can't just rush in there with no plan, 𝗬𝗏𝗄 explained to her fellow green-haired friend. As much as she hates to admit it, she was right. They were outnumbered and outmatched against those villains. But they can't just sit here while their sensei is in danger. They have no idea what to do, their friends are scattered around, their teacher is laying on the ground, and the villains have taken over the USJ. It's chaos at the USJ, Izumi thought when things couldn't go from bad to worse. The mist guy appeared at the handman's side and came to him. Shigaraki, I managed to scatter the rest of the students, but unfortunately, one person managed to escape. It seems that he was quite fast for me, the mist villain said. Kurojiiri, if you weren't my escape plan, I'll kill you right now. Shigaraki started throwing tantrums while scratching his neck. So what now, Shigaraki? It seems that All Might isn't coming here as scheduled. Kurojiiri asked him while wondering what we should do. And after all the trouble I had to bring this Nomu for him, Shigaraki was wondering as well. Well, with the pro heroes coming here soon, and All Might is not coming, I guess there's no other choice, let's retreat, Shigaraki said while complaining a bit in their hiding spot. They were surprised a little when the villain said that they should retreat. Wait, they're retreating. We're safe. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 cried while looking at Izumi and 𝗬𝗏𝗄. But Izumi wasn't convinced with this at all. Being the daughter of All Might, she learned a couple of tricks that most villains wouldn't just surrender after doing a raid like this. There has to be more to it. Well, it seems the symbol of peace wasn't coming today, but let's damage his pride and image a little, shall we? Shigaraki said as he made a mad dash towards Izumi and placed a hand on her head. Izumi feels dread as she closes her eyes while closing her eyes and grits her teeth while waiting for her inevitable doom. But she didn't feel anything as she slowly opened her eyes and saw that his hand was still touching her face. Huh, you really are cool, Eraserhead. Shigaraki looked at the underground hero himself as he used his quirk on Shigaraki as he just erased his quirk. Despite what they have done, Aizawa knows better than anyone not to let a villain kill their student, no matter how wretched they may be. He's just doing his job as a teacher and a hero. Nothing more, nothing less. Get away from me, smash. Izumi said as he used 10% of OFA to punch Shigaraki in the face, hoping to knock him out cold. But suddenly Nomu is moving toward Shigaraki and blocks her punch. Are you a fan of All Might, kid? You sound and act just like him. Shigaraki smirks as he says that to her while Izumi was shaking. Nice try, kid, but not good enough, Shigaraki said while smiling and trying to grab Izumi for a second time, only for Aizawa to use his scarf to hold his hand. Get away from here now, Aizawa said while trying to hold him. No, we won't be abandoning you, Izumi screamed at his teacher as she pleads to him to get away and make a run for it. Well then, say goodbye, kid, he said as he grabbed Aizawa's scarf and yanked it off him. Then he tried to grab a hold of Izumi's face, trying to use his quirk to decay him. When suddenly, a loud bang came from the door and everyone is stopping on what they were doing. Izumi, Tsuyu, and Mineta were looking at the entrance on who was entering the door, while Shigaraki is smiling excitedly as he knows who is the mysterious person that just entered the room. "He came," Shigaraki said under his breath while trying to hold his excitement. Then all of a sudden someone just came from the smoke. It was the symbol of peace. He entered the room as he was looking at the students and his co-worker on the ground. Rage filled his mind at the sight of this, while his daughter was being held by the villain. Right now there's only one thing that he could say to calm their mind. "It's fine now." "Why?" "Because I am here." All Might grit his teeth, and for the first time, he wasn't smiling. All Might is standing in front of the door, and one thing that the villain immediately noticed is that he wasn't smiling at all. He was pissed by how the villain was able to enter the USJ and attack the students and his co-worker. The villain that stands below could feel the rage that they felt as they stares at the number one hero in front of them. His eyes trailed to the plaza, and he could see Aizawa was barely able to stand as he tried to hold the villain with his scarf. He saw some of the students that stood near Aizawa. Mineta and Tsuyu were shaking with the villains surrounding them, and his daughter, Izumi, was being held by the hand villain. All Might bent his knee and rushed forward. Suddenly, the villain was knocked out and All Might managed to pick up Tsuyu, Mineta, Izumi, and Aizawa to safety. He put them down carefully, especially Aizawa, who was seriously injured. "Are you kids all right?" he asked while worrying about his students' safety. "We're fine, sir," Azui says while coughing a little. "Good, now stand back, I will face them." All Might said, "Wait, be careful, Dad. That thing is strong." Izumi warns her father. "Have no fear, young Izumi, for I am here." All Might said his signature catchphrase. He rushed over to the bird creature. "Carolina Smash," he shouted the name of his signature moves, swinging his arms in a downward X with an immense force as it met with the bird creature's body. "Haha, that won't work, All Might. Nomu here has a shock absorption," Shigaraki said while chuckling a bit. All Might keeps punching the creature one more time, then again, and again, but no matter what, his punch does not affect the creature. No matter where he hits the creature, it has no effect. "Nomu, let's show the symbol of peace your power, shall we?" Shigaraki muttered, and suddenly the symbol of peace got punched and landed a couple of meters from where he stood before. All Might was shocked. This is the first time anyone has ever punched him this hard. Not to mention his full power punches aren't having any effect at all. "I can let this creature get past me no matter what," he thought. Then he uses his signature move again, the one that always wins him in his battle against many villains. "Detroit Smash," he shouted his signature move as his fist met with the body of the creature, only to have no effect at all. "Are you gone deaf? Nomu has a shock absorption, or maybe you were always this stupid, All Might," Shigaraki said while mocking the symbol of peace himself. He wasn't as confident as he was before. Now he was stomped. His punches have no effect. The punch that has defeated many villains now is proven to be useless. At this point, All Might is running out of ideas on what to do. All Might then tried to circle around the creature before grabbing Nomu by the waist and slamming him to the ground in a suplex motion. Unfortunately, Nomu's upper body passed through the vortex that appeared. Then Nomu grabbed All Might where his weak points are, causing him to cry in pain. All Might thought once he tried to let go of the Nomu. "What the does this creature know about my weak point?" All Might said internally, "Impressive, as expected from the symbol of peace himself," Kurojirai said while applauding the hero himself. However, Nomu was designed to deal with your power 100%. And even if you did manage to win, there are still many villains in the area including both of us, and we're not to be taken lightly. Now, all we have to do is order the Nomu to pull your body through before I close it once your body is halfway. Kurojirai explained his current predicament. All Might's eyes are widened as he just falls into the villain's trap. He needs to get himself free before he gets his body cut up in half. Just when his head was about to touch the portal, he could hear the sound of an explosion and ice. Katsuki yelled out loud. A loud voice echoed as the Nomu was frozen up to his upper torso, and a sound of the explosion blasted through the mist villain, as he was being pinned down to the ground by Katsuki and Kirishima. Thank goodness we managed to get here in time, All Might, Shoto said while looking at All Might. Thank you young Todoroki, young Kirishima, young 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃. Now I need you all to get to safety. All Might said quickly as he wiped the BLD on his lips. I came here to beat this villain some, not to head to safety. The Katsuki rushes to the Nomu and fires off an explosion to his face, only for All Might, who saw this, immediately grab the young boy and rush back to the group and make a mad dash to get them to safety. Unfortunately, this forces All Might free Kurogiri as much to his dismay. But suddenly, the Nomu broke free from the ice, and his torn-off body that was being encased by ice was reformed back. What the I thought you said his quirk was shock absorption. All Might shouted in disbelief. Haha, I never said that was his only quirk. Nomu here has 3 quirks: super strength, shock absorption, and super regeneration. It's the perfect killing machine to face you at your 100% All Might. It's time to end this, shall we? Nomu, kill All Might. Shigaraki said while giving the order to Nomu, which it replies by giving a loud roar to the symbol of peace. 2 of them keep trading blows, but neither is building from the fight. However, All Might is losing the fight because none of his punches has any significant effect on Nomu. The students and Shigaraki could tell that All Might is losing, that he is prolonging the inevitable. While he was fighting back, he began to feel like he was losing, that this might be the end for him. He felt powerless for the first time and can't do anything about it. Powerless. That word is reminding him of his greatest failure. He began to think about his dead son. His quirkless son was used to getting bullied by his daughter and their friend. And now look where it got to him. Buried in a cemetery on Mizurufu graveyard, where he lost his life for his stupidity as a father. How could I call myself the symbol of peace if I can't protect my son from danger? All Might is supposed to give hope to everyone around him and help those who are in need, but he couldn't even do that to his children. He's only 14, he has so much to do in his life. Going to college, finding a job, building a family, grow old with his family, but he robbed those moments by throwing him into the wolves and leaving him to die there alone. I'm sorry, Izuku. Oh. I won't give up, All Might yell as he tried to push back Nomu. I'm sorry, Izuku. For a second I was just about to give up. I won't die cause I still need to redeem myself to him. I'm not gonna die like a coward. I will not fall. 'Cause I still have people that are waiting for me. All Might yell. A flash of Izumi and Inko's image appeared in his mind. I still have to train the next generation of heroes. All Might yelled. The student of 1A, an entire UA student, flashes his mind, and most importantly, I still need to redeem my past failure. All Might yelled. An image of Izuku appeared in his mind as he smiled. I'm not gonna give up. All Might roared as he punched Nomu even harder than before. You said that he has a shock absorption, not nullification. That means there's a limit on how much he can take. All Might said while the Nomu slightly faltered. All Might punch is becoming faster and stronger than before. Built to fight me at 100% of my powers. Then I just have to go beyond that, he shouted as he kept punching Nomu. Nomu began to lose, as it couldn't keep up with the punches that came to his body. He began to falter under the symbol of peace punches. The punches weren't stopping at all as he kept getting pummeled every second until Nomu couldn't keep up with it. Hey villain, surely you have heard this word before. Go beyond. Plus ultra. All Might shouted as he uppercuts the Nomu and sends it flying to the sky. Shigaraki and Kurogiri watch in horror as Nomu just gets defeated and gets sent flying. The Nomu that they have brought to kill All Might just get defeated like that. Immediately Shigaraki began to throw a tantrum like a child. No, and you just got defeated. It's not possible. You must have cheated somehow. No, could it be that Sensei was lying? All Might hasn't gotten weaker at all. He began to mutter under his breath. Could it be? All Might thought, Shigaraki, it seems that we must retreat for now. Without the Nomu, we clearly lack the battle power to go against All Might himself, and the pro-heroes were about to arrive. Kurogiri calmly explained to Shigaraki. Damn it, if only that burning man were to join us, then we would have won today, Shigaraki said while keeping throwing tantrums even more. Fine Kurogiri, teleport us back. Shigaraki ordered 𝗕𝗁𝗢𝗎 to open up a portal for them. 𝗕𝗁𝗢𝗎 opened up a portal that began to slowly swallow them both while All Might and the rest of the students just watched as the villain departed. "Beware, All Might, the next time we meet will be your last," Shigaraki mumbled at the symbol of peace while scratching his neck as he just left the scene. After the villain left, All Might began to sigh while looking around at the students and his colleague, and he realized that All for One is alive while thinking, plus this is the beginning of an upcoming war. After the whole incident in USJ, the student was driven out of the USJ and was questioned in front of the USJ by Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗲 and the rest of the police officers. The pros were coming just a few seconds after Shigaraki left, and immediately they arrested all of the villains that participated in the raid. Some of them are trying to escape, but they were apprehended by Midnight thanks to her quirk that put almost all the villains to sleep. Aizawa and 13 were brought to the hospital for sustaining an injury as soon as possible so they could begin their recovery immediately. Meanwhile, inside a deflated All Might stood in the middle of the plaza as he looked at the destruction at the plaza. He began to think that All for One might have returned and he has already found a successor. Is it possible for him to be alive? No, I crushed his face during our last encounter. I'm pretty sure he was dead. But that villain knows about my weak spot. And the only ones who knew were only selected individuals that I've trusted. So how did he have any information about it? He thought about his last encounter with Shigaraki, and when he said about 𝗵𝘃𝗁, I'm pretty sure that he was mentioning All for One. If that's the case, then I need to prepare myself for the upcoming battle that may come in our future. I hope that Izumi is strong enough to face the danger that awaits in the future. He thought while gripping his fist as he began to head to the exit with a new resolve. He promises himself that he will end this no matter what. To fight against the greater evil in the next future and keep this society safe no matter what. If only that were true. After 𝗧𝗵𝗁 had finished interviewing Class 1A, he entered the meeting room inside UA. We could see that every staff member was sitting in the room. From Principal Nizu, All Might, Present Mike, Midnight, Cementos, Snipe, Ectoplasm, Power Loader, Vlad King, and Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗁. They were sitting in a conference room to discuss what happened at USJ. So I guess you all already know this, but I'm still gonna say it. This afternoon, our school training facility has been compromised and the villain managed to break into our facility and threaten the safety of our students, Nizu explained. Has the student been injured or any casualty been reported? Present Mike asked the principal. Thankfully not, however. Shoto Aizawa and 13 had been brought to the hospital for recovery. Nizu said, good, at least the student wasn't harmed, Cementos said while sighing in relief. Now let me give you all a brief summary. Yesterday the USJ facility was attacked by an estimated 100 villains. The organization is called the League of Villains. The members were nothing more but street thugs and a bunch of low-life criminals. But these three pose a threat. 𝗧𝗵𝗁 explained as he showed a picture of three individuals on the screen. The first one is the mist villain, also known as 𝗕𝗁𝗢𝗎. His body is purely made from a mist. But he must have a physical body as some of the students managed to pin him down during the raid. Based on the video we receive, we deducted that his quirk is called warp. It allows him to create warp gates anywhere he wants from what we can see. He points to the picture of the mist villain. Warping quirk is already rare enough to think that it would fall to the villain's hand. That gives them a mobility advantage. Snipe said while looking at the villain's photograph. The second person is the humanoid bird villain. They called it Nomu. Its body is purely made from a laboratory as it wasn't human. Based on All Might's description, it manages to tank his punches with no problem. And it has 3 different quirks: shock absorption, super regeneration, and super strength. 𝗧𝗵𝗁 explained. How could that thing have a 3 quirk? Is it even possible? Ectoplasm asked while shocked by this revelation. It seems that this Nomu was bioengineered, so it's designed to withstand 3 quirks. Hence, Nomu wasn't human at all. Nizu said his speculation. What do you mean, Principal Nizu? Toshinori asked. Based on what I saw in the footage, it was already brain dead, since it was only able to follow commands from a certain individual. However, based on pure strength and raw power alone, we could see that Nomu is almost unbeatable as he almost beat All Might. 𝗎𝗓 said to the room. And lastly is this person, they called him Shigaraki. From what we can see, he was technically the leader of the group. However, his personality seems to be contradicting since he is rash and childish, almost like a man-child. However, his quirk is to be fearful. He can decay anything that he touches with his 5 fingers. Please proceed with caution as we have seen what he's capable of. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 warned their colleagues, which they took seriously. To be honest, I don't think this guy is the leader, 𝗬𝗵𝗲 said. Indeed, I've suspected that perhaps there's someone that's leading them from the shadows, Toshinori said in his opinion. Yeah, he doesn't have the leadership skills to lead such a group. Present Mike voices his opinion as well. They discussed the USJ case for over an hour trying to figure out what's their motive and how did they know that Class 1A will have a training schedule for today. They suspected that there might be a spy, but they decided to put that one on the hold as they didn't want to raise suspicions. Finally, 𝗬𝗁𝗁 decided to address a different case. However, during my recent interview today, there seems to be something that caught my interest. It's from one of the students that were in the middle of the fight between All Might and Nomu. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 decides to voice his opinion as most of the staff now gives him undivided attention. What do you mean, 𝗬𝗁𝗁? Toshinori asked his friend, but he looked at the blonde-haired man and contemplated whether to say this in front of the room or not since they had a falling out 10 months ago. From my last interview with one of the students named Kirishima-Ijiro, the man known as Shigaraki said before he chose to leave, he said something about a burning man. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 handed a case file to the principal. Burning man, Toshinori was confused because this is the first time he had ever heard the name. In the last 8 months, we've kept getting reports about criminals from a low-life thug to a drag lord in Mizudafu burned alive in their hideout or in the street at nighttime. We've got no eyewitnesses since most of the victims were burned to death, and so far we've reached a dead end. Until today when Shigaraki explained about the burning man, 𝗬𝗁𝗁 said while explaining his investigation. And you think this burning man is the same person that we've been after? Midnight spoke up. Based on his description, I think we have the same person. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 nodded his head. Well, it fits with the description, burning man and a pile of burned criminals that's been stacked around the Mizudafu in nearly a year. I mean, where else did you find a similarity like this? Ectoplasm spoke his idea. But still, a fire-based quirk is quite common. You know, we can't rule out the other criminal might be responsible for this event. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 commented on the ectoplasm idea. Maybe the cause of those burned cases was nothing but a lab accident. Present Mike said. In the last 8 months. You can't be serious, Mike. Midnight interjects while looking at his co-worker with an unamused look. I'm just saying, maybe it's sabotage from their rival, Mike tries to clarify. A case where a drag lord having an internal fight between their rival and sabotaging the other's lab like a bunch of children playing a prank. I hardly believe that. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 said while interjecting between Midnight and Mike. As they kept chatting and discussing the case, one particular blonde-haired man was feeling left out as he was the only person in the room that had no idea what they were talking about. Hold on, why wasn't I told about this investigation at all? Toshinori interjected. And everyone stopped talking while looking at the frail Yagi. This is the first time I heard about this burning man and criminal getting burned alive. But from the way you all reacted, all of you knew about this case already. Toshinori said while looking for his co-worker for an explanation. A deafening silence was suddenly filling the meeting room as no one was able to come up with an explanation or didn't want to give it to the man. That's because we've been requested to participate in this case. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 came to us 8 months ago about a case of a drag lord that got burned down and all of the organization shut down. Since then we've been doing our investigation on who or what caused this incident. 𝗎𝗓 explained while joining his paws together. But why wasn't I notified of this case? I'm a UA staff as well. Toshinori said while looking at his co-workers because of this betrayal. Let me remind you one more time, Toshinori, that you were not a full-time teacher since you only joined UA just to teach your daughter personally for 3 whole years. Not to mention your lack of responsibility to do your job properly, because if you had arrived at USJ based on schedule then Izuku and 13 wouldn't be in the hospital at all. 𝗎𝗓 countered back at the frail symbol of peace. Toshinori wants to debate this decision, but he knows that the principal was right. It was his lack of responsibility that caused this incident to happen. If he just does his job properly, then his coworker wouldn't have to put their lives on the line to protect the student. I admitted that it was my fault for not arriving at the USJ as scheduled, and the villain manages to harm our student and my coworker, Toshinori admitted timidly while looking at everyone in the room with a wave of visible anger and disappointment on their faces. But still, I could have helped with this case of Burning Man. I could provide an insight. Toshinori tried to find his footing in this situation. And what could you possibly do, flexing your muscles in front of the camera while showing your teeth like some muscle-head bodybuilder? Midnight looked at the skinny man while challenging him for an answer and getting a snickering laugh from Mike. What's that supposed to mean? Toshinori asked while looking at the R-rated hero herself. I meant that you have zero knowledge of how an investigation is supposed to work, not to mention that all of us have to pay for your lack of responsibility as a teacher. Midnight said sharply, meaning I'm an irresponsible hero, demanded Toshinori, his voice rising. Meaning you've been known to act more rashly, Yagi, which is why Principal 値づkeeps reminding you to do your job? Nomiuri berates the man. We'll leave my instructions from 値づout of this if you please, said Toshinori loudly. Oh boy, Present Mike said quietly in the background. This is gonna turn ugly, Vlad said. No kidding, Snipe said quietly while watching their coworker. I've done my fair share as a teacher here, and I've been providing them with my knowledge and my wisdom to this school ever since I stepped foot in this school. How dare you questioning my job as a teacher? Toshinori said to her. Oh please, you had no idea how to do your job as a teacher since you don't have a teacher's license. You failed to do your job as a hero and a teacher at the USJ, and let's not forget your recent fiasco where you failed to stop your prize student from blowing up a training facility. Midnight said while raising her finger to count what she was just mentioning. Young Bakugu is not my prize student. I treat all of the students in the classroom as equal. Toshinori interjects while slamming his fist into the table. I'm not sure you are. Sometimes the way you treat that class is as if they were sent by the freaking gods himself. Not to mention you treat them as if they were your children. Midnight said fiercely. Do not mention my children in this conversation, Nomiuri. I warned you. Toshinori declared loudly. Yes, said Nomiuri, her lip curling. The thing is, it's funny that you treated them more like your son instead of your own, isn't it? Knowing who Midnight was talking about, All Might stood up from his stool, and so was Nomiuri, and they were about to throw down the gloves, while the rest of the staff was ready to separate them. Only for Principal 値づto beat them to it. Midnight, that's enough. Toshinori, you were just officially joining the school a month ago, so you were late for the information that was given by 𝗧𝗂𝘁. And Nomiuri was right, since you failed to do your job at USJ, you need to do a better job as a teacher, not a hero. You had to choose whether you are a hero or a teacher at this point. 値づlectured Toshinori, who is still standing up. But right now, we should all focus our attention on this case and the League of Villains. They posed a threat soon, so we must set our differences aside and put our heads together with this case, 値づinterjected while trying to calm the situation. Midnight and All Might were sitting at their respective tables in silence as they all discussed the Burning Man case and the League of Villains. After the USJ disaster training, the student was interviewed about what was happening at the USJ by the police. We give our statement saying that there's some new group called League of Villain and they were coming to kill All Might. When we were done giving our statements, we were told that UA was on investigation for a while and we were given a 2-week break. They were told to go home and take a break from what just happened in USJ. We could see Izumi laying on her bed filled with All Might posters and merchandise. There's a piece of training equipment such as a dumbbell on the floor. On her studying desk, there's a picture of her and Izuku when he was 4 years old smiling at the camera while hugging Izumi. Izumi is currently laying on the bed while thinking about what just happened in the last 24 hours. The USJ was under attack by the villain. His teacher got beaten down by that monster, and worst of all, her father almost lost the battle against that monster. The very thought of her father being almost lost in a battle is a hard pill to swallow for her, since she always thought that her father is the strongest man alive that she know. He was invincible, and he was the perfect hero in her eyes. And yet he almost got defeated by the villain. If the villain had gone after him when that monster just got sent flying, then he would have lost because he just used his time for one for all. She grabbed her phone from the side of her bed and scrolled through social media, trying to find something to occupy her mind. She tried to read the news and it was only filled with the USJ news all over again. She decided to just close her phone when suddenly a group chat of her class popped through her notification and filled with texts from her classmate. Maybe this will help her get distracted. Class 1A chat: Mina. Is everyone already at home? 𝗧𝗵𝗲. I just arrived, what's wrong? Kaminari. Yeah, what's going on? Mina. Anyone up for a game at Fortnite? Kirishima. No Mina, I'm too tired already. 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Me too Kaminari. Me, 3 Everyone, as respectable students of UA, we should use this opportunity to study and try to catch up with our subject. 𝗎𝗏𝗏. Seriously Ida, can we just take a break already? Katsumi. Yeah, 4 eyes, we just got attacked at USJ. We don't need to hit the books already. Toru. Did anyone know how long our break is gonna last? Ojiro. It's 2 weeks Toru. Thank you Ojiro. You're the best. Katsuki. Shut up all of you, I've been trying to sleep. Kaminari. Sorry if we're disturbing your beauty sleep, your highness. Katsuki. Shut up dunce face Ida. Bakugo language Katsumi. Oh my god, can you all be quiet for a second Shoka? By the way, has anyone heard any recent news about what happened at the USJ? Jiro. Not that we haven't known of you Raraka. Izumi. Did Mr. Yagi tell you anything yet? Maybe some clue, or why are they targeting Mr. Yagi? Izumi. No I haven't, Dad hasn't gone home yet so I've no idea as well. Mina. I was just thinking, but is it possible that they attacked him because they knew about your father's weakness? Kirishima. But that's impossible, right? Tsuyu. That's true Mina. Didn't you forget that the only people who know about it were just us and the UA staff and some of Mr. Yagi's personal friends? There's no way that they would sell him out to the villain. Tokoyami. Indeed, it would be an irresponsible thing to do. 𝗧𝗏𝗏. Maybe they were trying to ruin UA reputation or something. I mean, it's pretty much been the talk of the news. Mina. I'm just saying because it seems like they were targeting Mr. Yagi, you know. Katsumi. I swear that the next time I saw that hand man, I'm gonna beat him for good. Toru. Guys please, can we just discuss this tomorrow? Sato. Yeah guys, seriously we're already having a long day. Aoyama. What we need is a good beauty rest. Jiro. Seriously, just be quiet and get some rest. It's been an exhausting day. Uraraka. Yeah guys, let's just get some rest after reading the last chat, maybe it wasn't such a bad idea at all. A good night's sleep is just what we need after an exhausting day battling the villains. Just when she was about to close the phone, a chat appeared on the phone. Momo. Guys Izumi. Yeah, what's wrong Momo? Momo. I need your help Jiro. Is there something happening? Shoka. What's wrong? Momo. Can you guys accompany me for tomorrow? Shoto. Where to? Katsuki. Speak up you ponytail Uraraka. Shut up Katsuki Momo. I think I'm ready to see him. Momo was known to be the daughter of the 𝗎𝗎𝗎𝗎 family. She was smart, appealing, full of confidence, popular, and considered to be one of the wealthiest families in Japan. Basically what any woman of her age would want to be. She's currently the most popular girl in school and managed to sway the heart of Shoto Todoroki, who is also known as the most popular and handsome student in her school. She always claimed herself to be intelligent and able to solve any problem that comes her way, which is why she was declared the best student in her school right next to Izumi and Katsuki of course. However, after what occurred on that particular day, Momo seems to be feeling lost for the first time. She was currently walking with the rest of her friends to apologize to her friend Izuku for what they have done in the past. While internally Momo was struggling to find the word to speak to him. There is no excuse that came to her mind for what she and her friends have done to him. Bullied him with her friends, mocking him all the time, calling him mean names, and thrashing his belongings. That's not how friends should act to each other. That's not how she should act towards him. Flashes of memories stream towards Momo's mind as she begins to recall the interactions that they had when she was still little, when Izuku and her were playing in the park and making promises to stay together no matter what. Turns out she's the one breaking those promises, not the other way around. There was nothing she could do since it had already happened. Right now, there's only one thing that she could do: go there and apologize to him. And trying to fix their relationship no matter how long it takes. She knows that there's no way that he would just accept her apology and things will go back to where they started. She's the one that destroyed their relationship and she's gonna rebuild it back from scratch. They finally arrive at the alley where they saw Izuku's body being crucified by Shoto's ice just yesterday. Momo put her hands on her mouth trying to cover her voice as she just saw her friend there hanging on the wall. She was beyond ashamed of what she did. And the scars that come from his "I didn't" justify her action either, considering she's the one that gave it to him that day. Izumi comes forward and tries to call out to him and asks sorry while crying. She wants to cry and tell him that she was sorry for betraying him like that. But he wasn't talking or moving either. Maybe he was still sleeping and didn't wake up yet. I called out to his name trying to wake him up, but he still wasn't moving a muscle. Katsuki decided to call out to him, but he was met with a shocking and terrifying expression. He was shocked beyond belief as he just kept muttering words that she couldn't hear. Something was wrong. Izumi tried to take a look at Katsuki's situation, and all of a sudden, she yelled at Shoto telling him to melt the ice immediately. When the ice started to melt, Izumi immediately called out Izuku's name over and over again, telling him to wake up. I began to put the pieces together and immediately rushed over to him and called out his name as well. She took a good look at his face and tears were falling out on my face. His face is pale as a ghost and his body is cold and stiff, not because of the ice that's trapped him but because his body is losing warmth and temperature. His lips are already turning blue and losing color. He was already broken beyond repair. She tried to call out his name as well, trying and hoping that they weren't too late. She shakes his body and brings him close to a hug, but he wasn't replying to her at all. Momo and Izumi kept calling his name over and over again, but he wasn't giving them any response. This wasn't how they imagined this would turn out. If she had known that this would be the end result of their action, then they wouldn't have done it in the first place. They only want him to stop being a hero, not rip his soul and shatter it into pieces. She continued to cry loudly as she stared at the sky. The alley was filled with cries of the loss of their fellow friend, as they were the ones who were responsible for this action. As he was just laying there like a lifeless doll. Right now, Momo is standing in the middle of what seems to be a study room. The room is quite dark as there's only one light that illuminates the room. The bookshelf is filled with many varieties of books from science to fiction. In the middle of it, there's a solid wood desk with a brown leather sofa chair. Inside it, there's the daughter of the 𝗎𝗎𝗄𝗧 family, Momo 𝗎𝗎𝗄𝗧, who is only standing in the room while looking at her feet and is not able to make eye contact with the other two people in the room. The others were Momo's parents, who just looked at their daughter with fury written all over their faces. Momo's mother is standing next to her husband as she's looking at her daughter with a hint of sadness and anger after what just transpired in the last 24 hours. So many things have happened, and up until now, she's still trying to process what she just heard at the Yagi household. Her daughter, her own daughter, has been bullying a quirkless kid in the last 10 years behind her back with her friends, and they've been abusing the kid by using their quirk just for fun. And the worst part of it is that quirkless kid's name is Izuku Yagi, who they have known in their entire life. She still remembers the little boy when he was still a kid, where he was running around in her house playing with Momo. Where they would play hide and seek in the living room. Or when they watch television and fall asleep and have a sleepover. They were wondering at first why he didn't come again when he was older. Did they have a falling out? Or maybe Momo and Izuku weren't as close as they were before. Or Izuku has been busy with school, so he didn't come here as frequently as before. Turns out he was scared of them. Scared that they might have treated him just like their daughter or his parents. It hurts her as a mother to know that the boy who she treated almost like their own child is actually suffering because of their own flesh and blood. How was she as a mother to cope with that feeling? To know that your own child is responsible to take someone's life because of the discrimination that this society has encouraged. She feels like she has failed her job as a mother and as a protector. Momo's father was sitting in front of the table with a solemn expression. He has been quiet ever since they came back from UA this morning and haven't spoken a single word since they arrived. The only thing that he said was to tell her daughter to join them in the study room to have a talk. He's been sitting in silence as he stares at his own daughter for over 30 minutes without speaking a single word. He's trying to let the guilt sink in completely for her to know just how furious they are. the boy that he had known for his entire life. His best friend's son. Hisashi's son, Izuku Yagi, has just been confirmed dead recently and his daughter is responsible for it. Out of everyone that he knew for the past 14 years, there's no kid, no matter how rich or great their status really is, had any comparison to Izuku. He is the only child that they have met that he liked. His personality is kind and caring, a well-mannered kid. He doesn't look at his daughter with a lustful eye as he pays attention to her personality instead. His smile is also filled with joy and happiness. He's the kid that wants to be Momo's husband in the future. Unlike her friend that she had brought a couple of days ago, the son of number 2 hero in 𝗕𝗏𝗏, Shoto Todoroki. The dual-haired kid is filled with arrogance and is always full of himself. His cold personality isn't as comfortable as he thinks. And his eyes are filled with the looks that considered everyone else is beneath him. He doesn't exactly approve of him being together with her daughter, considering that kid has an attitude problem, but he thinks that as long as her daughter is happy then he won't try to interfere in their situation. But it turns out that the kid is way worse than he thought. Bullying a quirkless kid and laughing at his dream to be a hero and participate in the boy's murder. As a father, he has to do whatever it takes to stop this at once before it's too late. He couldn't save Izuku when he was still alive, but he could try to bring him some form of justice instead. Finally, after what seemed to be forever, Momo's father decided to break the silence. Momo, before we could go any further with this discussion, I need to hear it from you. I need you to tell me, did you take part in Izuku's death? Momo's father asked her daughter while speaking quietly, but he was trying to hold his emotions as best as he could. Yes. She nods while sobbing in silence while clutching her dress. Momo, I'm so mad at you right now. Of all the things that you did, how could you torture Izuku's life like that? Momo's mother yelled at her daughter and she couldn't give an appropriate answer. We never raised you to be like this, Momo, to be a bully for others. Just because we had money doesn't mean that you can treat everyone that's beneath you like dirt. She broke down crying as she couldn't look her daughter in the eye. We taught you to treat others with respect, not like dirt. We show kindness towards people, not ridicule them for who they are. And we certainly didn't treat people as if they were nothing in comparison to us. She lectured her daughter as she continued to bawl her eyes in tears. Tell me, Momo, did you remember what happened 11 years ago to Izuku's life? The current head of the Yaoyorozu family asked her daughter. At first, she was confused about what her father meant, but then she began to remember it. It was a major event that changes Izuku's life when he was little. Some would say that it was the first nail in the coffin. Flashback start. It was a stormy night in the Yaoyorozu mansion as we could see that Momo is watching television along with Izuku in the living room. They were watching his favorite All Might movie on their huge television. Both kids were laughing and having fun as they just sitting there watching the show. When suddenly, someone knocked, the door opened and both Momo's parents entered the room with a mourning expression while trying to be strong in front of the kids. Their eyes were wet and they walked in and told both of them to sit down as Momo's mother held Izuku in her arms with her husband joined in at her side. Izuku, there's something that you need to know. Momo's father told to Izuku as he was looking confused at what going on. What is it, auntie? He asked while looking at him in confusion. Your father, he's gone, Izuku, he's already gone. I'm so sorry, Izuku, he said as he just sobbing after losing his best friend. Izuku was shocked for a moment as he tried to understand what was going on. His father already dies. It can't be true. This must be a dream. There's no way that his dad just leave him like this. Izuku, who couldn't handle the news, was crying in his arm as he just sobbed while muttering the word dad over and over. It's only for a minute and he already missed his father because he was already gone. Momo came over there to hug him and comfort him on his bed while he was crying in his bed. Flashback, and she still remembers where she called him Uncle Hisashi. He came to the house when she was still little and he always brought gifts whenever he came there. He is always there to help her family during its hard time, and so is the other way around. That's right. Izuku's father, Hisashi Midoriya, passed away 11 years ago. He was the best man at my wedding and so was the other way around. We always support each other during our hard times. Whenever one of us is going out of town, we would always put you in Hisashi's care, and the same thing would happen to Izuku. He said sternly. Do you remember the last word Hisashi said to you before he passed away? He asked while looking like he was about to explode for the first time. Momo began to remember it and tears were spilling from her eye once again. She couldn't believe that she had forgotten her uncle's last words to her before he passed away. Take care of Izuku while I'm gone. That's right, Momo, he asked you to take care of Izuku. And instead of keeping his promises, you throw away those promises instead. You know, after Hisashi was gone, I was counting on you to help Izuku during his hard time after he was announced quirkless and losing a father. He exploded at her again as she just looking at her feet. And instead of protecting him, you turned his life upside down and showed him pain and torture under the promises that you made with your friends to keep him safe from hero work in the future. He continued to yell at her. That dual-haired kid, Shoto, I remember him. I've seen that boy you brought home a couple of days ago, and to think you chose someone like him over Izuku completely baffled me. He scolded her again, and she could only stand in silence. I want you to end your relationship with this boy at the end of the day, no matter what. If you won't comply, then the consequences of your action would be much more dreadful than what you already felt right now. He said, and she just nodded in silence as she began to leave the room. And when the door is closed, Momo's father could only cover his face with his hands and let out his bottled-up emotion. He just broke down, as the last reminder of his long-lost friend is gone from this world. Hisashi, I'm so sorry, I'm truly sorry, he said while a single tear slipped from his eyes. It's been a week since what happened in the forest, and we could see in the Yayarosa mansion, Momo just laying in her bed while sobbing in her sleep. The room is dark with no lights turning on. She just lay in her bed with a blanket covering her body while sniffling a little. Her eyes are red and her nose is runny because of tears. She's been crying in her sleep ever since he was gone, as she couldn't erase the image of his friend's dying face from her memories. She tries to distract herself by reading a book or turning her phone for anything to distract her, or walking through her mansion. But nothing seems to be working. She couldn't get her mind out of it no matter what. The memory of her childhood friend laying on the ground dead would not go away. Momo stared vacantly at the window for a couple of minutes, his scream and yelling for help haunting her head. On the day of his funeral, they forbid Momo to come with them to his funeral, saying that she doesn't need to bother coming to his grave since he wasn't even her friend. Momo was hurtful with those words, but they were right. She didn't know anything about her former best friend. She's just laying in her bed there while holding tightly onto what seems to be an old Matryoshka doll. A couple of days after Izuku's funeral, the Yagi came to check on Izuku's old room and they decided to clean it up after a long time. They found a couple of things like his journal of heroes analysis and some of his belongings. The room itself didn't have any furniture, just some old dirty clothes and molded wall. It only had a single light bulb to light his room as they could barely see anything in there. As they continued to clean and sorted out his belonging, they found an old dirty Matryoshka doll in the trash can on his bed. Izumi, who knows immediately whose doll it's from, gave it to Momo the very next day. She immediately gave it to her the next day, and when she saw it, she completely broke down and sobbed harder than ever. It broke her heart to know that her childhood best friend has already given up on her love, that she was the one that caused him to be like that. Her eyes began to fill with tears as she realized what she had done, and for the first time, she felt repentance and sorrow. Since then, she's been in a deep depression and won't leave her room at all. She only leaves for food or goes to the bathroom. Besides that, she just lays in her bed while holding the doll tightly while crying in bed. Her butler and maid are worried about her situation, but they didn't have any idea what to do with this situation. They know that Izuku used to play in the mansion along with Momo when they were little, and hearing the news of his death was a shock for them. Even the head butler, who is close to Izuku when he was little, immediately passed out from the shock of the news. Her friends keep trying to tell her to move on from this and continued with her life, but she's just angry at all of them, especially Izumi telling her to straight out move on with her life. It was impossible for her to move on from Izuku's death. Before then, she won't even bat an eye at him as she saw him as nothing. Izuku is nothing but a quirkless kid who deserves to be treated like that. But now she's starting to miss him. She began to see him as her friend, best friend if she could call him that, or perhaps a potential boyfriend material. She truly misses him. She wants to apologize to him, make up for everything that she did to him, confess her love to him, have a lovely date together, hear his proposal and for him to hear the word yes from her mouth, walk toward the aisle with him waiting at the end, build a family together with him, and spend the rest of her life trying to make him the happiest man on the planet. She wants to see him one more time. But it was impossible because he was already gone. It was 6 in the morning as she was sitting in the classroom already since she decided to just arrive early before anyone else. She's just sitting there while looking out the window and still thinking about her friend. It's been 10 months since he was dead, and up until now, she couldn't bring herself to just move on and continue with her life like the rest of her friends. The relationship between her parents is starting to go back to normal. They started to talk like they used to, but they still give her a little look of disappointment sometimes. She's still their daughter and nothing could change that no matter what heinous act she had done. The rest of her friends keep asking her to join them to pay a visit to Izuku's grave before they went to UA, but she couldn't bring herself to go there, because she couldn't face Izuku or his uncle Hisashi. She was feeling too guilty and couldn't bring herself to go there. So she chose a coward's way and didn't go there. The rest of the day went slowly for her that day. They did a quirk assessment test to secure their spot in the class with Aizawa-sensei threatened with an expulsion from school. It was a slow day for her, but she still manages to perform excellently and manages to keep herself in the class. She didn't talk much in class, only saying simple words of yes and thank you. Izumi is trying to make small talk before lunch and invites her to a girl's lunch, only for her to decline with a polite smile and head to the roof. After arriving there, she just walked towards the edges and looked at the ground. It was quite tall. It was 5 stories long. It was more than enough to kill someone instantly in case they jumped. She was thinking, is this how Izuku views his daily life? To be standing in front of a tall building while waiting for someone to push him and end his life for good. Suddenly the view of Izuku's head falling to the ground came as an image. She grimaced and sat down with her legs crossed on the ground and holding her face while silently crying and muttering the words sorry all over again. It keeps haunting her like a ghost. Currently, she was riding on the buses with her friends headed to USJ. She was sitting beside Jdru and Oyama was in front of her. They were talking about what we would be doing there at the USJ and making small talk, but Momo wasn't listening at all. She is just still staring at the window and thinking of how Izuku would be excited to be joining in this exercise. He probably would be rambling about what we would be doing in the class and making a list of the possibility of what we would be doing there, or probably scrolling his phone to look for any recent news about Hero News or something. She could see him sitting beside her and mumbling while looking at his phone without realizing how annoying it is to everyone. But Momo found his habit to be one of his strong points. It proves how smart he really is and always analyzes the situation to improve himself or others. It shows her how kind nature he really is towards others. Her train of thought came to halt as she finally arrived at the USJ and they all came down. She listened to 13 lectures about how important a rescue is for a hero when suddenly a villain entered the training facility. She was shocked at how they could be entering here since the location should be a secret. But she was still in shock, so she just acted on her instincts and ran from the scene with the rest of her friends following her. Only for the mist villain to separate them all to a different place. She was teleported to a mountain zone along with Jdru and Kaminari there where they are met with an ambush by the villains that are waiting there. She created a weapon for her and Jdru to defend themselves from the villains. The villains surrounding them were looking at her with a lustful look, hoping that they could have some fun with her. They fought back for a couple of minutes, trying to hold them down until help arrived. But nothing has come for them in 20 minutes. As they kept continuing, the villains just outnumbered them all and they were surrounded. She was scared for the first time in her life. What's gonna happen to her and her friends? There were only 3 of them, while there were about 30 or 40 villains in the area. Her mind was in a panic as she started to doubt herself and the villains could see it clear as day. They were starting to laugh creepily while trying to undress her with their eyes. One by one, they started to come closer and were ready to have fun with the students in front of them. She felt helpless in this situation as she started to shake in fear. With her mind in shambles, she couldn't keep her composure enough to make a decision. 𝗓𝗪 and Kaminari were looking at her and they kept telling her to get it together and compose herself, but their cries were falling on deaf ears. She was starting to get dizzy and nauseated. And all of a sudden, a bullet flies toward one of the villains and shoots him in the knee. The hero uses his quirk to shoot him, wounding him and saving Denki, Kyoka, and Momo. Soon after, joins them and helps to subdue and restrain the remaining villains. Denki and Kyoka were glad that they were finally safe, but Momo was still shaking and looked at the villain that was getting arrested. What happened? I couldn't make a single move. I was scared of the villains. It's like I lost the will to fight before the fight even began. Is this how he felt every day for 10 years? To be helpless? To be this powerless? Momo thought as she shook. They were given a 2 weeks break after the whole fiasco in USJ to help them clear their mind after the whole battle. The class was being held back until further notice, and they were told to go home immediately. In a dark room in the Yaoyoroza mansion, Momo could be seen laying in her bed trying to wrap her head from what just happened there. She just laying there and crying in the dark. After what happened there, she immediately called her driver and told him to head straight home. The driver went to the mansion straight away, and after they arrive, Momo just came down from the limo and ran straight to her room and closed the door. Her parents heard about what happened at the USJ and they went to see how their daughter was holding up. But she just locked her room and went silent. She wants to be alone and not let her servant or her family see her like this. She didn't know what happened to her. She was completely frozen there while looking like a deer in the headlights. She always considered herself to be an intelligent person, a tactical strategist, always thinking one step ahead of everyone else, and able to see the best-case scenario on how to handle things. But today proves to be otherwise. She didn't show any of those things that she just listed in her mind. Right now, she just lost all of her confidence because of an incident that happened there. If 𝗧𝗵𝗲 was arriving 1 second later, then perhaps she wouldn't be here right now. Maybe she would be laying in bed crying because some villain just tries to violate her because she didn't have what it takes to be a hero or act like one. Her friends have been trying to comfort her ever since they came back from the USJ, but nothing seems to be working. It's like their words aren't the ones that she was looking for. She needs a comforting voice that could put her mind at ease. Someone who always stands strong no matter the circumstances. Someone who can give her the best advice during her hard times. Someone that could make all of her worries come to an end. But no matter how much she tries to think about it, only one person came to her mind for the right job. It was Izuku. It's always been Izuku. The one that lights her path in the darkness. The one friend that you always could count on. The source of her strength. For the first time, she truly wishes that Izuku was here to comfort her in her needs. She misses him. She misses his bright eyes, how his words could wash away her worries, his warmth to embrace her, and her smile that could comfort her in her dark times. There is absolutely nothing in this world that Momo wouldn't want to trade just to see him one more time. But he wasn't here any longer. So she steeled herself and grabbed her phone that was just laying on the top of her bed. She couldn't keep doing this any longer. She's been moping around for the last 10 months, swimming in her own depression, and not being able to move on with her life. For 10 months she's been trying to do this all by herself, and it hasn't given her any form of result whatsoever. She needs help if she wants to move on then. She needs this. She needs to do something that she was supposed to do 10 months ago. It was an appealing afternoon. The sun was shining brightly, the wind breezed against the tree, and the birds were chirping. In front of the entrance of what seems to be a cemetery park, there's standing Izumi Yagi and her friends waiting for someone to come there. After yesterday's conversation in their group chat, Momo had asked them to accompany her to this place and they promised to meet at this spot at 11 a.m. But she still hasn't arrived yet. They just texted on the group chat asking her where she is, only for her to reply that she was still on her way. So they all just waited in front of the gate patiently waiting for her to come so they could enter the park together. All of them were joining here except for Katsuki, who said that he had better things to do and didn't want to waste his time on something useless. How long are we supposed to wait here? Kaminari groans while slouching near the wall. Oh, quiet you, she said she will be here so we wait till she's arrived, Katsumi said while looking left and right to spot her. It's hot in here. I'm literally sweating my butt off. Kaminari complains as he wipes the sweat from his forehead. Quit acting like a baby, would you? It's not that hot, you know. 𝗬𝗪 said while wearing a sun hat. That's easy for you to say, you're wearing that hat of yours, Kaminari said while pointing at her hat. Well, it's not my fault you're not prepared like us, 𝗬𝗪 said while some of the girls are wearing a sun hats to cover the sun. They kept waiting there for a while with their backs touching the wall, and 𝗬𝗪 decided to ask them a question to pass the time while feeling a little curious as well. Guys, I've been meaning to ask this for a long time, but what's actually happening to Yayorozu? I mean, she's been depressed for a long time, not that we haven't been, but it seems that she's taking this the hardest among all of us. 𝗬𝗪 asked the group, hoping to get some answer. Yeah, I've been wondering too. She seems to be talking to us even less than usual. She doesn't pay attention much in class. It's like she's blaming herself, Mina said while remembering her friends in a classroom with a gloomy expression. That's because she is, Katsumi answered, which is kinda surprising to the group a little. She took a moment before she decided to tell them. She felt that this isn't her place to tell, but they have been through a lot, so she thinks that they need to know her situation. Look, I'm only gonna tell you guys what I've known, alright? So don't expect a lot of information from me, okay? She said while exhaling air for a bit before she tells them. Back when we were little, my mom used to tell me stories. She used to tell me that Auntie Inko and Momo's parents have been friends since high school. They were very close, and it's almost making my mom feel a little jealous of their friendship. They were inseparable, as my mom said about it, Katsumi explained. Mr. Yagi and Momo's parents were friends? 𝗬𝗪 asked while the rest of them listened closely. No, Mr. Yagi was Izumi's father, while Izuku's father was the one that's a friend with them, Katsumi said while remembering his father. His old man died in the line of duty when he was 3 years old. So he and Izumi weren't exactly siblings by BLD despite how similar they might look. Katsumi explained further. You said he was killed in a line of duty. Is he a police officer or maybe a firefighter? 𝗬𝗪 asked her. No, he's a pro hero based on what my mom used to tell me, Katsumi said. Hold on, his father is a pro hero? Kirishima asked, as this is the first time they know. Yeah, he's the pro who's known as the dragon hero, Salamander, Izumi answered, and the rest of the group was shocked. The hero Salamander was a legend in Japan. He's the previous number 4 hero in the Japan Hero and number 19 in the top global hero. Anyone in Japan had to know him, as he was a legend and to be said the next person who's close to being the next number 1 hero after All Might. They never heard him mention anything about having a family, let alone a son. And now here they are, hearing that their friend was the son of that legendary hero. None of them could mutter a word after hearing the information. Wait, he never mentioned that before, Toru said in disbelief. Izuku never mentioned that to anyone. I only knew because my mother was friends with Auntie Inko, Katsumi said. So the wife of Salamander is married to the current symbol of peace, and their children are the daughter of All Might and son of Salamander. It's a family filled with many legendary names. Shoto claimed, and everyone agreed with his claim. Wait, so Momo and Izuku were childhood friends? Uraraka asked. Yeah, they were friends since they were still in diapers. Their friendship goes back and has more history compared to anyone else. Katsumi said while remembering the old days. That's why Momo is feeling depressed, because she thinks that she's at fault for failing her uncle figure. She finished telling her story. No, if anything were at fault it should have been me, not Momo, 𝗬𝗪 said after Katsumi finished. If I hadn't heard his grunting that day, or if I had just kept my mouth shut and ignored it, then none of this would have happened, 𝗬𝗪 said while looking sad as her tears almost slipped away. It's not you, 𝗬𝗪. If anything it should have been my fault in the first place. I'm the one that agreed to bully him in the first place. If I had just said no that day, then things would have turned differently. Me, his own sister, decided to bully my own brother all in order to keep him safe. Now that I've heard it myself, it's nothing but a bad joke in my mouth. Izumi said as she continued to look sad. All of us play a part, Izumi. We're all guilty in this mess. None of us is saying that it wasn't our fault, but if we kept letting the guilt drag us, then we won't be able to move forward. Shoka said as she approached her. He's already gone, and the only thing we could do is live our lives for him. We had to fulfill his dream at the very least. Trying to be a hero for his sake. Shoka said as she put her hand on Izumi's shoulder, trying to hold her own tears from falling. Izumi nodded at her as she hugged her for comfort while the rest of them just looked in silence as they wiped their own tears as well. As they were finished talking, they could see Momo walking toward them from sideways. She carries a bouquet filled with roses in her right hand while shaking her legs with each step that she took. "Hey Momo, how are you holding up?" Izumi, who saw her, immediately went and greeted her. "Could be better, I don't know if I could do this," Momo said while starting to hyperventilate a bit. "It's okay, you could do this. We're with you along the way," Izumi assured her while holding her hand to give her support. "Well, time to face our demon," Katsumi said as she began to walk along the way. Momo nodded at Izumi and starts to walk in there. Momo and Izumi lead their way while the rest of her friends follow them from behind. They were walking to a hill when they spotted a pair of tombstones lying there side by side. The stones were cleaned as if it was being wiped regularly. There's also a small flower in front of the graves and the flowers are still fresh. "Rest in peace Izuku Midoriya, a good brother and a friend. Year XXXX. Here lies Hisashi Midoriya, Salamander, a good husband, a loving father, and a great hero. Year XXXX. Momo looked at the headstones as this is the first time that she saw it. She doesn't know what to say as this is the first time that she saw her best friend and her uncle figure. She just stood there while holding the bouquet and looking at the headstones. "Why is the name changed?" Momo asked since this is the first time she came here. "Before they decided to bury him, your parents and mine were having an argument about his last name. My parents want him to be buried under my family name, while your parents demanded that he should be buried as Midoriya, under his father's name." Izumi explained to her, "My parents were very persistent at first, but they remind them that he suffered under the name Yagi for 10 years and the only way for his soul to rest peacefully is to bury him under his father's name," she said as she looked at the tombstone. She was shocked that her parents were willing to go that far just to make sure that Izuku's name wasn't being tainted even more than it already is. They really love him like their own son. She put the bouquet in front of the grave and prayed for a moment. First, he prayed at Izuku's grave, then she went to his father who was right next to him. For a moment, she had no idea what to say. So many dozen scenarios went into her head last night. But for some reason, now that she was standing there, it was difficult for her trying to figure out what to say. "Hello Izuku," she said as she finally met him for the first time. It's the first time since she came to see him after that night. At first, he wanted to say the childhood nickname that she gave him, but then she realized that she has no right to say the nickname that she gave him when they were little. Nicknames are for friends only and they aren't. "Sorry that I just came. I have no excuse after all," she said as she slowly started to shake as her memory with Izuku began to flood her mind. "Hey Zuzu, let's make a promise right now that no matter what happens, we will stay together no matter what, and as a promise, take this," she said cheerfully while handing one of the Matryoshka dolls to him. "Sorry that I broke our promises when we were little. For betraying you all this time." She spoke silently. "I can't believe that you and I were friends. From now on, stay away from me," she said while looking at him with a disgusted look. "Sorry that I said those words at the park. It was wrong and I didn't mean it," Momo said while getting flashbacks from that day. "Sensei, Deku is pushing Izumi to the ground. He was being mean," she said while pretending to cry in front of the teacher. "And Izuku was in detention for 1 week that day and everyone laughed at him. Sorry that I lied to the teacher and you got detention for my lie," she said as she remembered that day. Izuku is sitting in the classroom when suddenly from behind, a thick encyclopedia is thrown to his head and everyone laughs at him. He turned around to see Momo snickering and Mina and Katsumi were laughing at their desks. "Remember when Katsumi threw that huge encyclopedia at you when we were in middle school? She might be the one that threw the book, but I'm the one that gave it to her. I should have said no back there," she said, and tears started to slip from her eyes. Izuku is walking in the cafeteria while holding a food tray. Someone is tripping him, making him fall in front of Momo's desk. Everyone laughed at him and Momo immediately closed her legs and called him a pervert. All of a sudden, most of the male students sitting nearby went to him and beat him up till he was black and blue for trying to peek at the school queen. Izuku got a 3 months detention for starting a fight and 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗵𝗃, while the rest of their gang were laughing at him and high-fiving each other. Sorry for calling you a pervert back in middle school. I know that you're not that kind of a person. And I just exaggerate the problem and make you in trouble for it. You've always been respectful, not someone that lecherous, she said as she felt guilty for that day. Why can't you just give up on your delusional dream, Deku? Just say the word and this all be over with, Momo said as she's hitting him with a metal bat on his body and head till his skin starts to turn blue from the bruise. I'm sorry for beating you up all this time. I was trying to make you stop being a hero, 'cause I don't want you to die. I just want to keep you safe, but it looks like we got misled from our intention and just continue doing it for our amusement. Momo sobbed as she said those words. Hey, I noticed that Deku seems to be avoiding us lately, Momo said to the rest of the girls. Yeah, it's been no fun, you know, like what's the deal with him? We're trying to help and he's been ungrateful to us. Izumi said while grunting a little. We need to show him that he belongs to us, Shoka said coldly as usual. I may have an idea for that, Katsumi said while smirking a little. What is it? Mina said while being a little curious. Well, it may have been a little inappropriate if you know what I mean, Katsumi said, and everyone realized what she had meant. You can't be serious, aren't you? Momo asked, her face flushed. Everyone else seems to have the same looks. Well, we've been taking things slow, and clearly he doesn't seem to take the hint. So we need to up it a notch. What do you say? Katsumi asked the rest of them while already agreeing to the idea. I'm in, Mina said. Me too, Uraraka asked excitedly. I'm in as well, Shoka said. Soon all of them are agreeing to the idea itself and they start to plan on how to bring him in and have fun to show how much they love him. So they decided to put a sleeping pill inside one of his lunches and hope that the pill will work. Then when he is passed out, they will bring him to a hotel room nearby and tie him up there. Alright, now you know what your role is, let's hope this works, Izumi said to all of them. Of course it will work, what could go wrong? Katsumi asked, when we kidnapped you at the school nurse to have our fun in that hotel room, it was wrong. I should have known that it was stepping over the boundaries. I should have rejected it in the first place, but I was tempted to do it. I want you to see me in a romantic way. Guess that turns backfire on all of us. Momo said as she continued to sob. The rest of the girls looked down and they started to remember what they did that night in the hotel room. They only did it to satisfy their lust and show him how much they love him. But they didn't think about what he would feel that day, 'cause they were too selfish to think about what he wanted instead. They only thought that he would be glad to have all of them in bed to give their body to him, but it turns out that he was traumatized and feeling disgusted with himself. I wanted to say sorry, Izuku. I should have never broken our promises. I should stay by your side. I promised that we would be together for the rest of our lives, that we would be heroes together. But I broke that promise instead. I'm so sorry, Izuku. Please forgive me. Momo bursts into tears as she finally releases all the emotion that's been pent up all this time. She broke down crying in front of her best friend's grave as she crawled to his grave to hug his tombstone. I'm sorry, Zuzu, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for abandoning you all this time. She continues to break down as she's trying to hug his friend's tombstone. Momo continued to cry in front of the grave as she looked at her uncle that's being buried right next to him. Then she looked at the grave as she spoke shakingly. Uncle, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I've failed you. I promised to take care of Izuku, but I've failed that promise. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, she said shakingly as she continued to cry. She continued to cry as she's trying to release all of the emotion that's been building inside of her all this time. She began wailing loudly, her eyes screaming the remorse and guilt she was feeling now as she looked at the graves. Momo let out another loud sob and threw herself down to hug both of the tombstones tightly as possible, not wanting to let go. The rest of them just watched as their friend broke down in tears. This is their first time seeing her like this. To break down on her knee and beg for forgiveness from her friend. Izumi, who's in her back, just looks silently as she's trying to hold her tears and grips her clothes tightly. She continued to sob till the sun was almost down as she didn't want to leave from there till all of her emotion had been released, as that evening was filled with nothing but the sound of loud sobbing. In the back alley of an abandoned factory in Mizudafu City, 2 patrol cars were parked near the sidewalk as they were getting a distress call about a house fire in the neighborhood. 6 police officers and a brown coat detective were investigating the crime scene. A factory where all 14 people died in the fire. My God, this is a mess. One of the police officers said while covering his mouth as they looked at the charred remains of the victims. What happened here? 𝗧𝗂𝘁𝗵𝗃 asked the coroner who's been examined the remains. So far we are only able to identify 3 of them, the rest have already turned to ashes and their remains couldn't be identified anymore. The coroner explained to the detective. The victims' names are Miyamoto Ryo, Asahi Soma, and Kimura Kyochi. They're 33, 28, and 30 years old. All of the victims are ex-members of the 8 precepts of death, the coroner said while examining the body. Possible cause of death? Detective 𝗧𝗂𝘁𝗵𝗃 asked while taking notes from his notepad. Well, so far we haven't detected any sort of chemical being used to light the fire. No traces of chemicals or anything in the area. The coroner said. Any witness? Detective asked to hope for some answer. No eyewitness, just a man who looked at the fires 2 blocks away and started to call a firefighter and a local hero nearby, the officers said. All right, run a DNA scan on the remainder of the victim. See if all of the rest of the victims are also a part of an ex-member of the 8 precepts of death. The detective said as he said to the coroner. I want a perimeter around the area, look into the CCTV camera in this area, see if we can find our mysterious arsonist. And interview the witness who reports the fire. The detective said as he ordered the rest of the officers. Yes, sir, they said. Detective, I think you need to see this, one of the officers said as he pointed to the back of the building. They went there and they looked at the building. The back of the building is filled with the debris of the remains of the building. It's filled with many broken cinder blocks and bricks. Finally, after arriving at the back of the building, they looked at the phenomenon that was happening in front of their eyes. What the? The detective was shocked as he looked at the sight in front of his eyes. It's the second one, sir. I think this guy is trying to send a message, the officer said as he looked at the building and pointed it out. The building is still on fire as the fire has spread to the building and formed a huge fire with the letter D on it. The building is still on fire as the fire has spread to the building and formed a huge fire with the letter D on it. It's been almost 5 months since we last saw his last message. We need to stop this mess as soon as possible. 𝗧𝗂𝘁𝗵𝗃 said while looking at the burning letter. Tell one of the officers to take a picture of this letter and send it to my desk along with any information regarding this case, 𝗧𝗂𝘁𝗵𝗃 ordered as he began to leave the scene. The letter itself kept burning through the building as we saw a mysterious individual standing at the top of the building looking at the burning factory from far away. 2 down, 2 more to go. 2 weeks passed since the USJ has taken place and Class 1A was ready to get back to their school once more. After they visited the cemetery a couple of days ago, Momo has finally been able to overcome her fear and managed to get back to her usual self. It's still a work in progress, but she is finally able to get her life back together. They were having a normal chat in class as they were curious about what they would be doing after the whole USJ fiasco thing. Suddenly the door was opened and Izuku set foot in the classroom. Everyone quickly went back to their seats and stopped talking. Good, you are starting to learn, Izuku said under his breath. First of all, it's been 2 weeks since the whole USJ fiasco and I'm here to tell you that your fight isn't over yet, Izuku explained. The rest of the class was suddenly holding their breath and in fear as Izuku held a neutral expression. Izuku, who looked at the rest of the class's reaction, began to explain. The sports festival is coming up, Izuku said in a monotone voice. It's a normal school event, the class shouted in excitement. Izuku-sensei, is it really a wise decision for UA to hold the sports festival after our school is being attacked by villains? Ida declared loudly while raising his hand. We couldn't shut the festival even if we wanted to. The sports festival is something that's been held every year, it's one of UA culture. Not only it's a festival but a chance for all of you to be scouted by the pro to see your potential. Not to mention, it's also to assure the public to saw the new and upcoming heroes. Izuku explained to the class. The sports festival is going to be held 2 weeks from today, so you have plenty of time to prepare. We've also added security to the stadium in case the villain ever is gonna attack. If we shut the festival down, we'll end up telling the villains that we're afraid of some random attack. Izuku explains nonchalantly. Now that the classes are over, you have the rest of the day off. The class was dismissed for today and all students had access to the school gym for your training. Feel free to do your training with whoever you want. Izuku said as he left the classroom immediately. As soon as their teacher went out, everyone began to pack their bags quickly as they went out to prepare for the sports festival, as they couldn't pass up such an opportunity to get scouted by pro heroes. Today is the day of the UA Sports Festival. The stadium was packed with many audiences from civilians and pro heroes that were dying to see it in action. Most of the heroes that came today were scouting for a promising intern for their agency in the future. As for the students themselves, they were waiting in the waiting room preparing for their names to be called by the announcers to head to the arena. We can see Class 1A waiting in their waiting room as they began to get nervous since most people are gonna watch their performance there. Some of them were sitting on the bench calmly to focus on the task that was coming, the others were laying their backs on the wall waiting for their names to be called, and the others were shaking their legs out. "Alright everyone, let's go out there and do our best," Kirishima declared loudly as he raised his fist. "Yeah," all of them yelled and raised their fists together except for one person. "Yeah right, I'll be at the top while you extra are just gonna stay at the bottom where you belong," Katsuki declared loudly while looking at the rest of the class. Katsuki comes to their front crossing his arms and looked at all of them. His red eyes are glaring at his classmate and he's having a smug grin filled with cockiness and arrogance on his face, thinking that he already won this before it has even begun. "Dude, what's your problem anyway? We're just congratulating each other here," 𝗵𝗃 said to the blonde Pomeranian. "If you want to act like buddy then go ahead, but I'm here to win and show who's the #1 hero here," Katsuki said cockily. "Out of my way extras," Katsuki said as he shoved past 𝗵𝗃 to the side and left the room. "I swear I'm getting tired of hearing his bullshit every day," Katsumi said as she closed her locker door. "I feel you." Izumi follows her as she closed the door as well. Soon one by one, they began to leave the waiting room and wait in the hall, and Present Mike began to call them out to go to the arena and give it up to the class that survives the villain attack. "The class won," Present Mike said loudly as the whole crowd began to cheer on all of them. "Why do I have to be here as well?" Izuku asked his cockatoo friend. "I get lonely, okay? I need to have some company here," Present Mike said while looking at him pretending to be sad. They walked out and saw the whole stadium packed with many audiences as they began to chant their name and clapped loudly. Many of the crowd cheered their names, saying that they were the class that survived the attack in USJ and they simply living up to the fame. Soon Present Mike began to call out other classes from 1B, 1C, 1D, the business course, the general course, and many others, but they didn't get the same excitement as Class 1A, which is making them jealous a little bit. Soon Midnight was coming to the stage as she began to announce that the sports festival is starting now, and she began to call out the representative student to make a speech. "Alright, let's have the first-year representative that took the highest score in the entrance exam and is currently joining the hero course, Katsuki Bakugo," Midnight said to the audience, and we could see the dread expression that Class 1A is having. "Oh no," Shoto said under his breath. "This is gonna turn ugly," Katsumi said as she looked away to avoid embarrassment. Katsuki walked lazily to the podium as he looked at the rest of the students with an expression that says, "You're beneath my level." He took a moment and grabbed the mic and said to the crowd, "I'm here to say that all of you extras are gonna lose," Katsuki declared loudly as he showed his signature grin to the rest of the students. Needless to say that everyone began to boo him, saying that his cockiness will be his downfall. Many of the students think that Class 1A is starting to get cocky since they faced a real villain and think that a sports festival is a walk in a park, which makes them look at Class 1A with a murderous look. In the teacher's observatory room, all of them were looking at the young man as they began to facepalm at his attitude. He hasn't changed a bit, and that speech is the proof that they all need. After that, 𝗍𝗓 began to tell his coworker to warn Midnight about Katsuki Baku. "Ectoplasm. Tell Midnight that if she sees any suspicious activity around Katsuki Bakugo that she needs to detain him as quickly as possible and disqualify him," 𝗍𝗓 said. "I'll tell Nomuri right away." Ectoplasm nods. "Wait. We can't do that in front of the audience. There are thousands of people watching this festival. Not to mention we'll be shutting down at young Bakugo Dream in the arena," Toshinori said to the principal. And those 1,000 people are at risk around his short fuse temper. 𝗫𝗠 counters back. Nothing's gonna happen to young Bakugo, I can assure you, Toshinori said as he tried to convince the principal. That's what you said at the battle training and look at what happened. Power Loader said to him. Young Bakugo's temper has always been an issue, but he's very passionate about being a hero. If we shut the door at this moment, then we'll be nothing more than abandoning him in the dark. Toshinori said to the rest of his colleagues. So he's so passionate about being a hero that he decided to blow up a building with your daughter and 2 students in there. 𝗫𝗠 asked the blonde man and he couldn't come up with an answer. Katsuki Bakugo has been proven to have a villainous attitude and no sign of remorse in his time in UA and has been a hostile student in his classroom, and the only thing that stands between me throwing the boy to the prison is because of your presence that convinces the 𝗕𝗶𝗃 to sweep your problem under the rug, so don't ever lecturing me on how to do my job, Yagi, 𝗫𝗠 said darkly to Toshinori as he began to sweat. From the arena, we could see Midnight is ready to start the first stage of the sports festival after receiving her message from ectoplasm regarding Katsuki Bakugo. Alright, without further ado, it's time to begin the first event of the sports festival, the obstacle course. Midnight declared loudly. When she was done announcing, most of the students began to take their places at the entrance of the stadium as they were waiting for the go sign. On your mark, get set, go. Midnight shouts. They all began to run towards the exit, but the Todoroki twins began to freeze the entrance doors and jumped ahead of the rest of the students. It proved to be futile as most of the students began to float or jump or use their inventions to fly across the ice. 𝗫𝗠 you icy hot, how dare you look down on me? Katsuki roared as he propelled himself using his quirk. You won't win this, Shoto, Shoka, Izumi said as she began to jump using one for all. The race continued as the first obstacle was the 0-pointers from the entrance exam. Most of the students looked in awe at the size of the robot that's standing in front of them. Without wasting time, Todoroki's twins immediately froze the legs of the robot as he ran past it. Katsuki, who just watched from behind, is beginning to explode his way when the robot Shoto froze is being exploded by Katsuki as he just went past the other student and tried to catch up with the twins. Without realizing that the robot he exploded is starting to fall onto the student below. Look out, one of the students yelled, it's falling on us. The student yelled as she pointed at the robot that began to fall when suddenly Izumi used her telekinesis quirk to hold it steady so it wouldn't fall on the student, giving them a chance to get away. 𝗕𝗁𝗁. Useless, Katsuki mumbled as he looked behind. When the student began to clear out, Izumi began to drop the robot as carefully as possible. Some of the students began to clear the way to make a room for it. They began to sweat heavily when the robot fall down to the sides. What is that guy's deal anyway? Mina said as she rants about almost being squash flat. I'm almost crushed, you know, Mineta said as he was shocked for almost dying. In the observatory room, we saw 𝗫𝗠, who was looking at the screen as the robot was being dropped down by Katsuki and almost crushed most of the students. Luckily, they were saved by Izumi. Anything else you want to add to Katsuki's great quality to be a hero material, Toshinori? 𝗫𝗠 challenged the frail man sitting near him as he could only look down in embarrassment and was shocked at what was happening. He's still young, Principal. We still had 2 more years to correct young Bakugo's attitude. We can't give up on that boy as of right now. Toshinori pleads to the principal, hoping to change his mind. It's okay, 𝗫𝗠, let him dream in his fantasy bubble. Let's just watch the race right now. Recovery Girl said as she began to watch the race. Well, one thing I can be sure of, it's gonna be a memorable sports festival, that's for sure. 𝗫𝗠 said as he took a sip from his tea. Back in the race, we could see that some of the students were trying to keep up with the race as they were running around. But they were about to struggle to face the second obstacle, which is known as the fall, a canyon that must be trekked across by walking along tightropes. Most of the students were using their quirk to go around the obstacle, like the Todoroki twins that froze the rope to slide over, or Bakugo twins that propelled themselves, or Izumi that jumped around with one for all. While the rest of the students were carefully walking on the rope, but some of the students fell from the fall. The race was currently being led by the Todoroki twins, followed by Katsuki, Izumi, Momo, Iida, and Katsumi in order. They kept running toward the third and final part of the race as they were hurrying. Wow, it seems that all of the students from class 1A sure wanna win this. Present Mike yelled. They have been training relentlessly and some of them have shown their result, although it's still adequate, Izuku commented. We could see that both of the Todoroki are leading the race, followed by Katsuki Bakugo and Izumi Yagi. But now they are facing the last part of the race, the minefield. Present Mike yelled, minefield. All of the students yelled simultaneously. Not to worry, the minefield itself is harmless and won't even kill you at all. But it's gonna hurt a lot. Present Mike yelled. Katsuki, who finally managed to catch up, tries to fire off an explosion to Shoto's face only to be blocked by ice. "You icy hot, hold still," Katsuki yelled in fury as he kept trying to hit him. Izumi, who was looking at the two of them in a quarrel, decided to power up one for all on both of her legs, trying to make a mad dash. "One for all 15%, Izumi said as she charged her quirk. Izumi took off in a dead sprint as she finally managed to close the gap between them. Soon, she managed to catch up with both of the boys who were still in the middle of arguing. Now 3 of them are tied up. Who will win in this race? Present Mike announced as the crowd began to cheer on them. "Both of you, don't you dare look down on me," Katsuki yelled as he fired off his explosion trying to catch up. "I won't lose in this race," Shoto said as he's trying to catch up. "I will win this race," Izumi said as she tried to get to the finish line. All 3 of them crossed the finish line together as they were landing on the ground. They were waiting for the announcement as Present Mike began to look at the footage, and the winner of the obstacle race is Izumi Yagi. Present Mike announced to the crowd, then the whole stadium was filled with cheers. In second place we had Shoto Todoroki, and coming on third is Katsuki Bakugo, and let me tell you, folks, that was very close. Present Mike yelled loudly and the crowd goes wild with the race. Izumi was shocked as she just won the race, but she finally did it. She just finished first place. The crowd was clapping at her and calling out her name. They congratulated her for winning the race and she couldn't be happier. Even though she was almost certain that she won't be in first place, everyone in the crowd looked at the 3 winners and clapped their hands. But that enjoyment was interrupted by a loud voice Bakugo as he grabbed Shoto's collar and pinned him to the ground. "You look what you did. If you just get out of my way, then I would have won this race instead." Katsuki roared at the dual-haired boy as he started to crack his explosion into his palm, trying to intimidate him. Izumi, who was looking at both of her friends trying to get at each other's throats, began to separate from them, along with Ida and Shoka, who just finished the race. However, Katsuki didn't let go of his hand from Shoto's collar as he kept grabbing it tightly and was ready to punch him. "Katsuki, what the F are you doing?" Izumi said as she tried to get a hold of her friend. "Bakugo, that's enough," Ida said as he tried to reprimand the situation. Ida and Katsumi were able to hold at Katsuki as Shoto was being held by Izumi. Some of their classmates who just finished the race began to look at Bakugo being held by their class president and his sister while he grunted and trashed around like a toddler. "Have you lost your mind? What were you trying to do over there?" Katsumi asked her brother, who has apparently gone feral. But all Katsuki's responses were nothing but yelling and growling as it filled the entire stadium and everyone could hear his ranting about being in third place. After a 30 minutes break, the second event finally started as most of the students were gathered in the center of the arena, waiting for Midnight to explain the event and its rules. "Alright, for the second event, we'll be starting with a cavalry battle," Midnight said as she cracked her WHP and continued to explain. All of the students began to move closer and pay attention to her as she began to speak louder to explain the rules of the second event. For this event, only the first 42 students that passed the first event are allowed to join this round. The first 42 students would need to form a team of a maximum of 4 people. Each person is gonna get a headband based on a point on their last performance in the previous competition. The person who ranked last would be worth 5 points, and each rank above that would be worth 5 more points than the previous one. Midnight explained the rules. "So we need to steal the other team's headband while trying to keep our own as well," Izumi said under her breath. "This certainly gonna be a fierce battle," Kirishima said as he's getting pumped out. However, with the exception of first place, this person's headband would be different compared to others because it's worth 10 million points. Midnight said, and everyone began to glare at Izumi with an intense look as she's starting to shake a little with the murderous look on their faces. The one to wear the headband must be the rider, and they were not allowed to wear it below their neck. If the team loses their headband or crumbles as a horse configuration, they would still not be eliminated. Participants were allowed to use their quirks, but, should they attack with the malicious intention of harming another participant, they will be forced out of the game. Midnight continued to explain while a certain Pomeranian dog clicks his tongue. You have 30 minutes to choose your team. Now go. Midnight said as she cracked her 𝗕𝗶𝗶𝗆 for the last time. As soon as Midnight ended her explanation, everyone began to look for their partner while trying to avoid Izumi like a plague. Even some of her close friends like 𝗬𝗧𝗏 and 𝗬𝗪 avoided her. Izumi was just about to do this event on her own when suddenly a hand touched her shoulder. Hey, you want to team up with me? Katsumi asked her while tapping her shoulder. You sure? I mean, won't you be having a huge target on your back if you team up with me? Izumi asked her. Yeah, and who better to keep them in the way from getting their hands on that headband of yours? Katsumi responds by showing her smirk. Well, I guess you're making a good point. Welcome then. Izumi said as she brought her close. So, who else have you got in mind? Katsumi asked for their strategy. Well, we're gonna need some support if we're gonna pass this, she said as she began to look around when a pink-haired girl was coming her way. Hey there, Miss 10 million point. Can I join your team? Said a pink-haired girl with goggles on her hair. I'm not to be rude, but who are you exactly? Izumi asked, shocked a little. Oh, where are my manners? My name is 𝗵𝗃 from the support course. Nice to meet you. I was hoping to join your team so I can present my babies, she said. Babies? Katsumi asked while blushing a little bit. Yeah, check it out. She said as she showed her invention. Wow, that's awesome. So what are they? Izumi asked while trying to come up with a strategy. Well, this little fella here is my speedy baby. It can travel fast in a second, as she shows a pair of boots. Then this thing here is my jetpack, which is pretty self-explanatory. So what do you say? 𝗵𝗃 asked, hoping that they would agree. I think this could work. I mean, I got a pretty good strategy already, Izumi said confidently. Alright, so we need to find our fourth member and we'll be on our way, Katsumi said while looking for their last partner. All of them began to look around for a fourth member. Izumi spotted a few potential teammates. There was 𝗬𝗧𝗏 who still haven't found a teammate, but then a purple-haired kid began to call out to her and she joined his team. A couple of seconds later she spotted a blonde-haired kid from class 1B, but she dismissed the thought seeing his attitude toward the other class. He's like a mini version of Katsuki. She was thinking of inviting Kirishima, but to her annoyance, he was already joined in Katsuki team consisting of Katsuki, Siro, and Mina. She hoped that they would be able to use him as their frontman of their group, seeing his quirk is perfect for the job. As she scanned around the area once more, Izumi spotted a dual-haired colored girl who haven't found a teammate yet. Well, what about Shoka? Izumi asked her friend. Not bad. Her quirk would be perfect for the job. Let's go ask her, Katsumi replied, so they went over to her and asked her to be their fourth member. She explained her strategy and after that, she agreed to be their fourth member. They began to come up with a plan on how to win this and go to the next round. They decided on Izumi to be the rider, while Katsumi is on the offense trying to attack anyone that comes nearby, Shoka for defense as she uses her ices and fire to hold the enemy down, and 𝗵𝗃 for their support. Alright, now that the team is set, we're about to begin the second event. Now let me remind you one more time that any act of violence that caught our eyes was immediately disqualified. Now ready, go. Midnight yelled and everyone began making their way to the Izumi teams. Alright guys, just like we planned, Izumi said, and Shoka immediately used her quirk to create a wall of flames to keep the enemy from their way. The flames spread wildly as some of the students are starting to back off. 𝗬𝗏𝗺𝗺, it's hot, Kirishima said as she started to feel the heat. When the rest of them were occupied with the flames, they didn't realize a set of robotic arms was snatching the headbands from other students without them noticing. Remember, try to avoid Shoto and Katsuki. They're our biggest threat right now, Izumi ordered as she tried to keep an eye on any other teams. Got it, said all of them. Izumi's group began to quickly move and they struck against a team of 1B students and they were able to grab their 100 points headband. Then they saw a group consisting of Sato, Aoyama, Koda, and Toru. They were relying on Toru's stealth and Koda quirk to get their 10 million headbands only to be met with an explosion on their way. What the? Sato said as he looked at Izumi's group as it packed with their class heavy hitters. Shoka and Katsumi with them. You have got to be kidding me. Toru said as she looked at their opponent team. Then all of a sudden, they saw ice coming through the floor which made them begin to freeze up. All of them were immobilized after being trapped in ice, courtesy of Shoka. Immediately, Izumi took the headband from Toru's head and their teams. Sorry about this, Izumi said as she grabbed their headband. They began to turn around and saw that a group of Class 1B are headed their way and the rider it's the rumored blonde kid Monoma whom she heard from her friends. Their group is headed straight towards their team as he tries to close their gap. Well, if it isn't the despicable Class 1A, now you will see the true strength of Class 1B. Monoma rants loudly. What do you want? Izumi said as she tries to get her hand on their headband but one of his teammates is creating an air bubble to block her way. I'm here to prove to everyone who's watching this sports festival that Class 1B is just as superior as Class 1A. And when they saw your humiliating defeat in a live camera, then no one would ever forget how we Class 1B were able to defeat you Class 1A some. Monoma continues to mock them as his team charges toward them. Izumi's group began to get pissed by the minute. Even the cool and calm Shoka is starting to get irritated hearing his voice. This is getting annoying, Katsumi said as she fires off an explosion near them to make a smokescreen then stole their headband immediately. Then Shoka used the chance to freeze their track immediately. What the? Come back here you cowardly Class 1, Monoma said as he began to freeze up. They tried to make a runaway, only to be met with a sudden dash so suddenly a gust of air began to run past her team. She began to look and saw that Shoto teams just ran past them thanks to Ida's quirk and stole their 10 million points headband. You should pay more attention to your surroundings, Izumi, Shoto said as held her headband tightly around his hands. Dimn our points. Katsumi cursed, making them lose their 𝗓1 spots. Katsuki, who saw that the 10 million points fell into Shoto's hands, began to see red, as he furiously chased down their team while smacking Kirishima in the head. Hurry up shitty hair, Katsuki yelled at his red-haired friend. Would you calm down, it's not as easy as you think this is? Kirishima began to complain. I don't give a damn in shitty hair. All I want is to win this race. I lost in the previous match and I'm not gonna settle for anything but first place. Katsuki yelled at Kirishima as his eardrum was starting to break. I won't give up as well Bakugo, Shoto said as he began to attack Katsuki's team. Katsuki team had finally come to Shoto and they began to have their explosive showdown in the arena. Needless to say that no one bothers to get in their way after watching their battle. The showdown between those teams is so intense that it draws the attention of every pair of eyes in the stadium. What's this? Katsuki's team has finally begun to make a move as he tries to steal the 10 million points from Shoto team. This is a one showdown you don't want to miss. Present Mike said to the crowd. Shoto's team began to attack furiously as they used Kaminari electricity to give them a shock blast. But Katsuki began to attack back by firing off an explosion at his team only to be blocked by Momo's riot shield and Shoto's ice. They want to make a run for it, but since Ida already uses his special move to take Izumi's 10 million points, his engine is disabled so right now they couldn't escape. Hey, you can't attack them with a harmful intent bro, Kirishima said to Katsuki. Katsuki stop this, Ciro yelled at the Pomeranian. But his cries were falling on deaf ears as they were forced to go on the defensive as Katsuki kept hitting them, putting Shoto's team in the corner and nowhere to run. He could use any of his ice or fire trying to make a path for their escape route, but that could also harm his team and theirs as well. 30 seconds to go before it's over. Midnight claimed. For Shoto, these 30 seconds were very important because he needed to stay on the defensive for 30 more seconds before they advanced to the next round. But for Katsuki, this is his last call to win this match or else he would lose his chance to be the winner. In a last attempt to win, he fires off a huge explosion to create a smoke screen to cover the arena with smoke. Shoto, who couldn't see anything with the smoke covering him, began to falter to their back. Katsuki, who saw this, began to take his chance. He quickly jumped out of his horse, and using explosions he began to propel himself towards them. He readied his palm to fire off an explosion in his opponent's direction and blast them out of his way. Izumi, who saw this from afar, realized what Katsuki was trying to pull as she began to worry about her friends. But she couldn't do anything because the smoke screen blocked her vision to use her telekinesis. "Oh no, Shoto, look out!" Izumi yelled to her friend Shoto, who saw Katsuki trying to jump out to their team in the middle of the smoke, began to understand his plan immediately. Since his options were limited and there was not a lot of time, he chose the only thing he could do at this moment and ensure the safety of their fellow classmate. He creates a huge ice wall to cover her team, trapping them in an ice casing and making sure that the layers of ice were strong enough to withstand the upcoming assault. But unfortunately, Katsuki's attempt was not to knock them off but to launch a powerful assault on their opponent as he smirks while seeing his explosion make contact with the ice. Plus, in the last second before the bell started to ring, the arena was filled with the sound of a huge explosion and loud screams filled with pain ringing on everyone's eardrum. The entire stadium is watching the scene in front of them as the sound of cries echoes throughout the arena. No longer was the arena filled with cheers and clapping hands. But instead, it was filled with horror and dread. The sound of happy kids cheering for their future heroes in training was replaced with crying and tears coming from them as their parents are trying to comfort their offspring because of the loud sound of the explosion. Everyone in the crowd was gasping and crying out after watching the attack that hit a group of teams in the arena. The smoke is covering the arena as they watched in suspense, waiting for what's about to happen. Just before anyone could get a word out, the smoke began to clear out as we saw a blonde man just standing on the top of shattered ice grabbing a headband worth 10 million points while laughing out loud like a maniac. Katsuki laughed at the sky as he had just won the second event, cheering that he was the best in this school, while the others along with the crowd are wondering what happened to Todoroki's team. As their vision is starting to clear out, we could see the ice that protects them begin to fall apart as Shoto used his ice to cover them in safety. They were coughing up as if they just got hit by an explosion. Shoto, who saw Katsuki laughing with no care at all for their classmates' safety, began to feel anger boiling in his blood. He immediately got up from the ice debris that comes from the ash blonde explosion quirk and went ahead to him at once. Some of his teammates were seeing him coming over to Bakugo, who was laughing without utter care at all, and charged at him and gave him a right hook on his jaw, punching him out of frustration. "Have you lost your mind or something? You just fire off that explosion to us, and for what? Trying to win a competition." Shoto yelled at Katsuki's face. "Do you even care what might happen to us when you use your quirk? Look what you did to us." Shoto shouted at Katsuki and pointed his finger at his teammate who was still caught in the debris. "Get off me, icy hot. You just couldn't handle that you lost to me. Faced it. You're not the strongest in this class. I am. And this proves it." Katsuki yelled as he pushed him to the ground and stood up while raising the headband as a symbol of his victory. "How does it feel, knowing that you just lost to me? I bet it was humiliating, right?" Katsuki shouted at him while showing his maniacal grin. "Dude, were you even concerned that we might get caught up in your blast or something?" 𝗧𝗪 screamed at his teammate as he tried to get back to his feet. Why should I anyway? It's not my fault you got caught up with the blast," Katsuki arrogantly said to his team. 𝗧𝗪, who heard that, began to march his way towards the explosion boy to give him a piece of his mind, but Mina suddenly get in his way to hold him in his place. They were about to start an argument only for the sound of Kaminari trying to wake someone. "Ida, were you okay?" Kaminari asked as the bespectacled boy passed out. "Ida wakes up," Momo called out to her class president. Soon everyone turned around and they saw Ida, who was covered in bruises and laying on the debris of ice. His UA gym clothes are being torn apart because of the explosion and his entire body is covered in brush. He was currently laying on the ground unconscious, not responding to his friends calling out his name. "What happened? I thought Shoto Ice was protecting them," Kirishima asked while checking on their class president as well. "It did, but Ida was standing at the front during our cavalry battle. The aftershock from the blast that was fired off from it must have knocked him out, and he's taking most of the damage." Momo explained as she joined in to check up on his friend. Soon after that, the medical robot was coming in their direction and carrying Ida's body to the infirmary to check up on his condition. The rest of the team at the arena only looked at the boy in horror as he got injured. Shoto's team watched as one of his teammates was being carried to the infirmary and they prayed for his safety. As they looked at one of their classmates being carried to the infirmary, Kirishima marched right in and decided to confront Midnight to disqualify 𝗵𝗃𝗃 right now. Even he knows that his friend's action has crossed a line. Sensei, you clearly saw that 𝗵𝗃𝗃 fired off that explosion to harm us. You need to disqualify him right now. It's clearly against the rules. Kirishima said to Midnight. Yeah, I mean look at Ida. He got injured because of his reckless behavior, Kaminari said angrily while pointing at Katsuki, and he wasn't pleased with all. Huh, what did you say, dunce face? Katsuki said angrily. Sensei, you already saw that 𝗵𝗃𝗃's attempt towards us was an assault. Not to mention that he managed to send Ida to the infirmary because of the blast that he fired off intentionally. No matter how you saw it, it's against the rule. Momo said as she tried to reason with her. I'm sorry, but we can't disqualify Katsuki 𝗵𝗃𝗃 for that assault. Midnight said with a heavy heart. What? The two teams yelled at Midnight's statement. It's true that 𝗵𝗃𝗃 had fired off that explosion, but the blast produced a lot of smoke as it covered the vision of the audience and myself as a referee. We had no concrete proof that 𝗵𝗃𝗃's quirk is responsible for Tenya Ida's injuries or that he had any attempt at an assault. For all we know, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 could have grabbed the headband during the smokescreen and you guys were tripped down and Ida was squished by all of you guys, causing him to pass out. Midnight said while looking down. But you saw that Ida was laying on the ground having bruised all over his body. That clearly proves that he was being attacked by the explosion caused by 𝗵𝗃𝗃. That has to mean something, right? Mina said while covering her mouth with both of her hands. Even though we asked Ida for his statement of what might happen to him, we don't have the proof we need to disqualify 𝗵𝗃𝗃. For all we know, the entire Todoroki team could be plotting this as a means to forcefully disqualify 𝗵𝗃𝗃. Midnight said while didn't agree with her own decision. So I had no choice since 𝗵𝗃𝗃 managed to grab the 10 million points headband and with the lack of evidence on Tenya Ida's situation. The winner of the second event is Team 𝗵𝗃𝗃. Midnight said as she announced the winner to the crowd. Within seconds, the arena wasn't filled with cheers, instead it was replaced by booing sounds as they were bad-mouthing Katsuki for his behavior, demanding he is disqualified from the festival for his action. But Katsuki, who doesn't give a damn about it, just walked away as he prepared for the next matches and flipped off to the audience. While the rest of the students just looked at him with disgusted and horrified looks on their faces as to what was just going on to Ida. As the students began to scatter, Katsuki headed back to the locker room. He was walking towards the long hall as he grinned over his victory, thinking that finally he proved to himself and those losers back there that he was the best. Sure, the first event was a bit humiliating for him with being the third place, but the last event was solid evidence of his triumphant. Finally, they could see what he was capable of. There is some casualty with 4 eyes, but that's because he doesn't belong in here and he was the weak link in that little group. He looked at the headband that has the written 10 million points in his hand and he gripped it tightly. This headband was a proof of his victory. He took a glance for a moment and tossed it on the ground and walked ahead. But his path was being blocked by someone. He take a look at the person standing in front of him, only to be met with Izumi in the hallway, and she didn't look pleased with all. Get out my way, Izumi. Katsuki yelled in frustration as she stood in his way. I'm not moving an inch from this spot. Not until you go to the infirmary and apologize to Ida. Izumi said as she looks at Katsuki in the eye. And why should I apologize to him? Katsuki said back as if he hasn't done something wrong. If I had to explain that to you, then you're way dumber than you look. Izumi spat with a lot of venoms. It's not my fault he's in there, Izumi, Katsuki said with no hint of remorse. Don't you dare act like some righteous JRK. You just fired off an explosion at our classmate's face and you think you're not guilty at all. Izumi lectured him. If he just stays out of my way, then 4 eyes won't get hurt. Katsuki talked back. How could anyone avoid an explosion? Do you hear yourself talking? If Shoto hadn't protected them with his quirk, who knows what could happen to them? then maybe all of them could get hurt and you don't even care. Izumi said as she tried to get through some logic into his thick skull. It's his fault anyway for being weak. If you are weak, then you shouldn't be in this place anyway. I'm just doing him a favor. Katsuki said arrogantly. By ruining his chance to be a hero. Izumi yelled back as they began to have a staring contest and none of them would even budge. They keep staring into each other's eyes as she looks at him with sadness while he looks at her with anger filled with jealousy and rage. It's been like this for 10 months for them as they keep going forward and backward all over again. Why are you acting like this? Is it because of what happened to us 10 months ago? Izumi said quietly while looking at Katsuki as she began to reminisce her memory. Flashback started. It was the day of the funeral of Izuku Yagi, and everyone began to go there to pay their respect to him, except the Yagi family as they weren't allowed to go there by the adults. They were reluctant to go there saying that they were his family and they have every right to go there. But the adult forbids them saying that if they still insisted to go there then all of their bad deeds including the children will be shown to the public. While the adults were going there to pay their respect, one blonde-ash boy is walking towards a certain neighborhood. He too wasn't allowed by his parent to go there along with his sister, so he decided to sneak in when his parents were away and headed to his destination. He arrived there and slowly knocked on the door at Yagi residence while waiting patiently at the door. Izumi opened the door only to be met with her best friend, Katsuki Baku. She was wearing long pajamas with stains of tears on both of her sleeves. She looked at him with sadness on her face with a little hint of anger on her facial expression, and it didn't take a genius for Katsuki to know that she didn't like to see him. What do you want, Katsuki? Izumi said while her eyes is still red because of the crying. Look Izumi, could we talk for a second? I need to say something. Katsuki asked while rubbing the back of his head. I'm not in the mood, Katsuki, just go home, Izumi said while not looking him in the eye. Look, you haven't replied to my text or calls in 3 days. I'm just getting worried, that's all. Katsuki said as he tried to talk to her. Well, I'm here, am I? So just go home, Katsuki. Izumi said as she tried to close the door, but Katsuki held it so that she couldn't close it. Why haven't you given me your answer? Katsuki asked as he looked at her in the eye. When those questions left Katsuki's mouth, Izumi couldn't form any word to reply to his question. She looks in sadness as he just asked her that question. She tries to come up with an answer to the question, but she came up empty. It's been 3 days since he asked that question on the phone and she hasn't given him a single answer to it. He tried to text and called her over and over, but she just hung up on him. Something inside her was telling her that answering this question was a bad idea and it's gonna destroy her life for good, so that's why she didn't answer him. I've been trying to call you for the last 3 days and you still hadn't answered my call, Izumi. So I come for an answer. Katsuki said as he determined to get his answer. Look, I can't give you an answer right now, okay? It's really not a good time. Izumi explained. And when is the good time then? 'Cause right now, all I see is that you've been avoiding me. Katsuki said as she kept pushing for some answer. Look, can we talk about this on any other day? Just please go home, okay? Izumi tried to tell him to leave. Why is it because you embarrassed or something? Katsuki asked for an answer. You don't want people to know that I came here or something? Katsuki said as he kept pushing her for an answer. What is it then? I want answers, Katsuki said as he pushed her even more. It's my brother's funeral, Katsuki. Okay, I'm not allowed to go there 'cause my uncle said that I don't deserve it. My parents are still mourning and they haven't been the same since then. His own family aren't allowed to go there when they lowered his coffin to the ground, and you want me to answer your feeling right now. How self-centered you are actually, Katsuki. Izumi exploded right into his face. Alright, I get it, Izumi. You're struggling with feeling like you can't cope. Well, welcome to the bloody club. Katsuki rants to her while spreading his arms wide open. You have no right to yell at me, our situations are nothing alike. You're not me, okay? You deal with craziness all the time. I am just a person, Katsuki. Just a person who was already dealing with the fact that I'm losing my brother, and then I find out that I was responsible for his demise. That he's already gone, so I am sorry if I somehow hurt your fragile feeling. Izumi said as her eyes started to get watery while smacking the back of her door. You confessed your feeling to me on the next day after we got chewed off from UA. Saying that you love me. What do you want me to say, huh? How do you expect me to respond? That I would be overjoyed that you finally confessed your feeling to me. I was in shambles, Katsuki. Izumi yelled back. For you, it looks like you only lost your personal entertainment. A toy to keep you occupied during your dull day. But for me, it's 100 times harder than that. I lost my brother Katsuki. He's not running away or missing. Or that he's been kidnapped, he's dead. Izumi continued to yell at his face. I haven't slept properly in the last 3 days. I've been crying in my bedroom while staring at the last picture of me and my brother when he was 4 years old, just before that DMN test was taken. I kept saying how sorry I am and thinking that it was my fault that our family is ruined. Izumi said as her voice started to go louder and louder. My mom is still lying in her bedroom thinking how she could have failed her job as a mother by neglecting his own son. She hasn't come out of that room ever since that night, and I have to get her up from bed just to force her to eat something so that she doesn't starve to death. She said furiously. My dad is still sitting in the living room while sometimes taking a glance at my brother's old room where it is under that diamond stairs, thinking that he's at fault in this whole mess. Thinking that if he had just said yes on that day when he met my brother on the rooftop, then perhaps he won't be dead right now. Izumi said as she started to turn red because of the anger. And now here you are, complaining that somehow I hurt your feelings for not giving you an answer when my problems aren't enough already. So forgive me, Bakugo, for ruining your parade. Izumi finished yelling at the boy in front of her. Ever since he confessed to her that night, she couldn't find the appropriate answer to his question. She's been trying to process her mind for what happened, and she clearly didn't need a confession to add that to the mix. Dating someone that is responsible for your brother's death. How do you respond to something like that? How could she look him in the eye, and a splitting image of her dead brother appeared next to him? So that's a no then, Katsuki said as he looked at her with a pensive look. He was looking at her for an answer, but she couldn't reply to his question. She couldn't even look him in the eye because she had no answer to it. For the first time, she wasn't sure what she wanted. What is happening to her? Before all of this happened, she and Katsuki had something special in their life. They were having crushes on each other, and it's been going on for quite a while. Back in junior high, both of them always spend their time together, hanging out together after school, or having lunch together, walking around the halls side by side like a couple. They were known in their school as the king and queen of 𝗓𝗪. They were the soon-to-be perfect couple, as their peers used to say. Many of their peers were jealous of how romantic their love life is and was willing to be in their shoes. She always likes how determined and strong-willed he is to achieve his dream to become a hero. Sure, he might be a little rough around the edges, but he is nice and a good friend once you get to know him. The same could be said about Izumi. She's the daughter of All Might. Any boys at the school would be head over heels for her. She's smart, has a great quirk, nice personality, and comes from a good family. Anyone wouldn't want to reject her. But now, those titles were meaningless to her. No longer, as she prides herself as the queen of the school. She's nothing but a fraud. When she walks towards her old school and saw those people calling her name and the teacher congratulating her for entering UA, all she saw was nothing but how fake her school is. She finally realized that her school is nothing but a cesspool full of rotten students and teachers. They turned a blind eye to what happened to her brother, and instead of doing anything, they joined in as well while sabotaging his school life by messing with his grade. The school must be thought that they could somehow benefit from her making it pro. Which is why when the news about her brother being absent from school, they did nothing, knowing whether he was alive or not won't affect their life, thinking that he's gonna come back sooner or later. It's because of Deku, right? Katsuki said under his breath without looking in her direction. She was a little pissed that he said that word. That wasn't his name and he knows it. But ultimately, she was confused why Katsuki was mentioning his nickname while looking with hatred in his expression. It's his fault that we couldn't be together, right? Katsuki mumbled. Izumi asked while confused. Izumi looked a little perplexed by his question. She looked at Katsuki and his eyes were filled with every bad intention she could see. If she wasn't confused before, now she is. It's his fault that you and I couldn't be together. Katsuki scowled at Izumi. If he had just given up his stupid dream of being a hero, then all of us won't be in this mess. We won't get chewed out by that stupid rat and that homeless hobo. We could still go to UA through the recommendation letter that your father had given to us. And we certainly could be together. We would have the perfect life as future heroes, but that demon Deku had to ruin it by dying on us. It's always his fault. Katsuki yelled out his frustration. You take that back right now. Don't you dare blame this on him. He didn't do anything wrong, in fact, it's our own fault anyway. Izumi cried in anger. I'm not the one who had a delusional dream, Izumi. That was your worthless brother's fault for not opening his demon eyes. Katsuki yelled out. Don't you dare to badmouth him. Izumi said as she tried to defend her brother. Oh, don't act like you're some sort of saint. I remember that you used to give him a hard time when we were kids, those beating and how you threw his body like a doll. You're just as bad as me, okay? Katsuki said as he remembered how she beat him up on a daily basis. I may be the one who gave him all those scars and bruises for the last 10 years, but let's not forget that you're the one that put that wretched idea into our brains when we were little. Beating my brother for being a hero. Are you shitting me? Izumi tries to defend herself. You took part with that idea itself, remember? I clearly remember you said that we should do it. Katsuki said back, I only do it to keep him safe. I'm trying to protect him from the danger of being a hero. Izumi said, and you kept doing it yourself along with those extras. Katsuki rants back. There you go again, acting all high and mighty as if you were in the clear. You're just as guilty like the rest of us. Izumi said as she began to turn red because of her frustration. It's your fault for beating him in that alley. You clearly saw how aggravated he is, that he was not in a good mood, but instead of being a good friend, you decided to be a douchebag and teased him out. Why do you think he lashed out at all of you that day, huh? Izumi asked him about that day. That's because he tried to prove how he was better than me, Izumi. It's always been that way for all of this time. You saw how he looked down at me, thinking that he was standing at the top claiming that he was better than me. All I did was put him down and show him his rightful place. Katsuki screamed at her. He's a useless worm, Izumi, a waste of space, a quirkless freak that doesn't have the right to breathe a single air in this world, and all I did was do him a favor. In fact, he should be grateful that I ended his meaningless life. Katsuki yelled out in fury. After hearing what he spewed from his mouth, Izumi is starting to see red. She began to power up one for all and punched him in the gut. She was furious with his attitude, and the fact that he blamed her brother for their situation was the last straw for her. The punch was so powerful that it made him vomit his saliva and knock him down to the ground. He was looking in disbelief at why she was just punching her out of nowhere. He looks down at you. Are you kidding me, Katsuki? He didn't look down on you, in fact he looked up to us all this time. He wants to follow in our footsteps, your footstep to be a hero. But instead, you saw that as his way of him looking down on you all this time. Izumi exploded in his face. It's always been that way, isn't it? Everyone's looking down on you in your life. You couldn't handle the fact that he was a better person than you, so you decided to bring him down till you were satisfied. She continued to scream in his face. So let me put some words through your thick skull. Stay out of my life, Bakugo, until you open your goddamn eyes wide open. Don't come entering my life anymore. Izumi finished talking to him as she just slammed the door and locked it while going back to her room to cry. After the door was slammed in front of him, Katsuki's mind just raced with much information about what just happened to him. The outburst, the screaming, the yelling. It was happening so fast to him. How Izumi rejected his feelings on the spot, how she yelled out that it was his fault for everything, and how he was humiliated in front of her neighborhood. Everything is starting to crumble because of his past actions. But one thing he knows, it was Deku's fault as he starts to remember how he looks at him and tries to get back up again and again after he knocks him for good. How he was relentless like some cockroaches. He was quirkless, he was useless, he had no place in this world, and somehow he was still trying to stand as his equal. Katsuki's mind wasn't listening to logic and reason anymore. Instead, it was pumped with jealousy and anger throughout that day as he was pissed that he got rejected by his crush. Why does that useless quirkless keep getting in my way? Flashback and, I know that I rejected you back then, but that doesn't give you the right to act like an egotistical PP around others. Izumi rants to him while he just looks at her with arrogance. You humiliated me, Izumi. Do you know how it feels when people looked at you with pity, knowing that the rumor that you rejected me is spreading like some disease? Where they gossip like a bunch of teenage girls. Katsuki boomed in anger. So that's what this been all this time because your reputation got wrecked because I rejected you. How petty you are, Katsuki. Izumi yelled out in the hall. I already told you before and I keep saying it again. Until you open your demon eyes, don't talk to me. Izumi lectured him for the last time before leaving him there in his thought. Katsuki is just standing there after listening to her rants and he was confused by her scolding him. There it is again. Just like 10 months ago when he stands in front of the Yagi's household. She yelled out her frustration to him again. Why is she mad at her? All he did was try to win this competition, so why is she mad at him? He thought that perhaps she came to congratulate him for winning the second match and came to apologize for what she said 10 months ago and beg for them to get back together again like how they used to be. But why is she mad? Did he do something wrong? It's not his fault that his classmate couldn't avoid his attacks, so why is she acting like this? They were weak and he was strong. It's that simple. It's how the world works. It's how everything works in this world. All he could think of is that it's Deku's fault again. Why is everyone keep clinging to him even though he's just a ghost? That piece of SHT is already dead and yet it feels like he's still walking around and bothering his chance in this school. Not wanting to hear any of this bullshit any longer, Katsuki decided to storm out and head back to the locker room and prepare himself for the next match while being angry about everything per usual. As they were waiting for the final event, the students were waiting patiently in the middle of the arena waiting for midnight to announce the final event. The sound of the cheering echoing the arena along with the clapping sound of the crowd cheering for their hero in training. Alright, now that we already took a break after the second event, let's begin with our final event. The battle tournament. Now back to you, Midnight. Present, Mike yelled, trying to get the crowd riled up. Thank you, Mike. Now before we begin, I have some unfortunate news. Due to 𝗕𝗏𝗍𝗍's injuries in the cavalry battle, he would not be participating in today's event and has withdrawn from the festival, so we decided that these match participants were only 15 students, Midnight explained as some of the crowd began to booing with the decision and telling that 𝗵𝗃𝗁 should be disqualified. Katsuki, being Katsuki himself, just decided to click his tongue in frustration and mutter under his breath, telling that he was weak, to begin with. Before Midnight could explain the rule for the next event, Kirishima raised his hand trying to get Midnight's attention. Sensei, we've talked about this during the break and we decided that all three of us were dropping out from this year's school event. Kirishima said that and Siro and Mina were also agreeing with this decision. The participating student was turning their respective head towards Kirishima as they were baffled by the decision. Throwing a chance like this would be a waste and all three of them are agreeing with this. Izumi turned in their direction and asked them in disbelief. But why, this is your chance to get scouted by the pro hero. Why are you all doing this? Abandoning the chance to participate in sports festival is almost like throwing a spot for a top 10 hero. I'm sorry Izumi, but we talked about this and we decided that we don't have the right to join this event, Mina said while looking sad. I get it that you were part of Katsuki team, but that doesn't mean that you all have to pay the price for it, Shoka said while trying to reassure them that it wasn't their fault. Still, we felt pretty bad for not stepping in, Siro said while rubbing the back of his head. Izumi, if we took part in this match, I couldn't live with myself knowing that I could have stopped him from hurting Ida. And I wouldn't be able to call myself a man, Kirishima said to her. Midnight, who heard this, felt touched as she saw that some of them are actually showing integrity. Alright, I accept your decision. I'm here to announce that Kirishima Ijiro, Hanta Siro, and Mina Ishido were dropped from this tournament at their own request, Midnight announces to the audience. Some of them are clapping at the decision for their chivalry and integrity. Katsuki, anything you want to say to your old teammate? Midnight asked the Pomeranian in front of him, but he just scoffed. What's there to say? It's their loss, not mine. That means 3 less obstacles standing in my way, Katsuki said while acting like a JRK. The rest of the students just looked at him disgusted with his attitude, and Katsumi muttered, but under her breath, "Alright, now let me show you the lineup for today's one-on-one battle," Midnight said, and the screen in the arena began to show the match lineup. Izumi Yagi vs Hitoshi Shinszo. Shoto Todoroki vs Masahiro Ojiro. Denki Kaminari vs Katsumi Bakugume. Hatsum vs Shoka Todoroki. 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗁𝗍𝗂𝗵𝗆 vs Momo Yaoyorozu. Katsuki Bakugu vs Ochako Uraraka. Alright, let's begin the first round of the battle. 𝗵𝗃 yelled. From Class 1A, we have the powerhouse of Class 1A herself. Give it up for Izumi Yagi. Present, Mike said as the crowd start to go wild. And from the general course, the dark horse of this year's sports festival, Hitoshi Shinszo. Present, Mike said, and the same thing happened just like Izumi's. As a cue, both of them enter the arena and people began to cheer their names. When they enter the arena, both of them just stared down at each other while looking at their opponent. You two ready? Midnight asked, and they both nodded. Alright, let the fight begin. Midnight announces to both of them. They both stared down for a moment, not making any movement until Shinszo started to badmouth her. So your name's Izumi, huh? Shinszo said with a smug on his face. Wow, it must be nice to be able to join the hero course. Unlike me, who is stuck in general education. Luckily Ochako had warned me this before. Guess it was true that he had a brainwashing quirk. Izumi thought as she remembered when her friend warned her before the match started. Shinszo, who saw that Izumi didn't bite his insult, thought that perhaps one of her classmates had warned her about his quirk, so he decided to badmouth them to rile her up. So one of those lackeys of yours is warned you about my quirk, huh? Which one is it? Is it the airhead bimbo? Or perhaps that monkey man? Or maybe it was that bird freak? This guy sure had the talent to rile people up. He could be in the same league as Katsuki in terms of being a 𝗕𝗪𝗀𝗁𝗍𝗂𝗃. Izumi thought about the loudmouth in her class. 𝗕𝗂𝗁𝗍𝗵𝗃, it's not working, Shinszo said while getting nervous because his taunts didn't work. You know, I think that you don't have a right to enter the hero course. From the way I see it, you just get a free pass to enter the course because you had a great quirk. Unlike me, who had to work my butt off from the bottom, you were handed a silver platter to enter the course. Must be nice, right, little princess? Shinszo continued to badmouth her as she started to crack under pressure. It must be nice, huh, where you get treated with royalty, where you didn't have to lift a single finger to get what you wanted because you had your lackeys to do it for you. Or maybe you used to have a servant to do your every bidding and your friends just sit their asses off just like their spoiled princess. Is that it? Shinszo taunts her again, and that's all it takes for her to break loose. How dare, Izumi yelled, and suddenly she falls into a trance. Gotcha, Shinszo smugly looked at her in trance. What's this? Izumi Yagi is just standing in silence. What's going on? 𝗵𝗃 yelled. They all watch the battle as Izumi is just standing there doing nothing and Shinszo is just looking at her with smug written all over his face. Well, I thought that this is gonna take forever. Now turn around and walk out of the arena. Shinszo ordered her and she just complied. She began to turn around and walk slowly towards the ring of the arena. Some of her classmates began to call out to her hoping that she would snap out of it, but she wasn't listening to their voices and continued to walk away. Izumi tries to resist, but she is unable to stop herself. Her head feels like it's full of fog and her body is moving on its own. But suddenly she was brought to a void, a black mist surrounding her body. She looked around to figure out what was going on and what was happening to her. Then suddenly 8 ghost figures began to show in front of her. Izumi thought that she might have seen a ghost, but one of the figures began to materialize and form a view of a woman. She was a tall woman with a well-built figure. Her hair is black and straight, and she looked at her like she's trying to pierce her soul. Izumi Yagi, do you know who am I? She asked her while she tried to say a word but couldn't because her mouth wasn't there. She knows who was standing in front of her. If she had a mouth and could talk, she probably gonna fangirl her till crazy, so she just nodded. That's right. My name is Nana Shimura, the 7th user of One for All. Currently, you're standing in front of the past user of One for All. She nodded and began to explain to her. She was shocked. Her father never mentions anything about a past user. The only thing that her father ever said was that her quirk came from her 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗍𝗂, and that's Nana Shimura. She is well known as she used to be in the top 50 on Japan Pro Heroes Billboard. She was idolizing her. Knowing what you've done in the past, I would be embarrassed that someone like you idolized me, Nana said as Izumi's eyes were shocked by her words. She began to ponder on how did she knows about her evil deeds. If you're wondering how I know about it, we could access your memory and mind when we reside in your body. That's right, we could hear your thought. The minute you gained access to One for All, your memory is an open book for us to see. We saw everything and we heard everything you have done and we're beyond embarrassed right now. Nana said in a cold tone, knowing what she's done along with her parents and friends. Izumi could only look at the ground as she said those words. Even her idol was embarrassed by her action. The motivational figure in her life other than her parents was disgusted with her, and she knows that she deserved that, but she's trying to redeem herself. I can't believe that Toshinori had the nerve to neglect his own son because of a lack of quirk. Guess I made a mistake in choosing my successor, she said under her breath, but Izumi could still hear it. Despite we all know the disgusting act that you committed, we decided to help you just this once. We will free you from this quirk, but don't expect that you are forgiven. It's because the world still needs One for All to battle against the next evil, Nana said to her, and Izumi could only nod. Give my message to Toshinori. Tell him that I'm beyond disgusted with his action, Nana murmured. And suddenly the black mist began to surround her body once more and swallowed her into the darkness as she began to leave the void while leaving Nana standing there alone. Good luck, you're gonna need it to fight your demon, Nana said one last time before she began to disappear. Suddenly, the arena was met with a shockwave as Izumi flicked her left finger, causing a shockwave to repel the brainwash. Shinszo was shocked as this is the first time someone was able to break from his brainwashing quirk just as she was about to step from the ring. What's this? Izumi Yagi has just broken free from Shinszo quirk. This is unbelievable. Present might comment and the crowd look in disbelief. Izumi took a moment to gather her thought about what just going on and silently surmises that the ghosts were the past users of One for All. Shinszo interrupts her and tries to get Izumi to talk, but she refuses to answer. And suddenly she makes a dash toward Shinszo using One for All and punches him out of the arena. The winner of this first round is Izumi Yagi. Midnight announces to the crowd and the whole arena began to roar with excitement at the match. Shinszo was still on the ground grunting over the pain from the punches when suddenly Izumi extended her hand out. You know, I didn't enter this school because of some silver platter that my parent handed to me. I worked my way up to the bottom just like you, and I can tell that honestly, anyone could be a hero, Izumi said while smiling a little. Shinszo, who listened to her speech, began to form a smile and began to take her hand, and the crowd were clapping at both of them while congratulating Izumi for her winning and Shinszo for his effort. Right now, there is no winner or loser. Both of them felt like a winner. I'm sorry for my words, Yagi. I didn't mean to, Shinszo said while rubbing the back of his head. That's okay, let's just forget about it, Izumi said, and Shinszo began to walk out of the arena with his head held up high. All right then, let's begin the second round of today's match. Midnight announces to the crowd. After she was finished with her match, Izumi was currently walking out of the arena, but she wasn't headed to the locker room, but to the spectator's seat to meet with her father to tell them what just happened to her in that arena. It was shocking to her to meet the past user of her quirk. Her father only mentioned his mentor Nana Shimura, and not the other 7 people. She needed to know what was happening, and her father may be giving her the answer that she needs. She was running towards there to tell him the news as she began to sweat profoundly until she was exhausted. She kept running without paying attention to her surrounding as she was bumping against someone when she walked towards the intersection of the hall. Ouch, I'm sorry. I'm in a hurry. She falls on her but then suddenly walks out from there and apologizes to the person in a hurry. While the mysterious person is just looking at her from a distance while radiating an amount of aura around the surroundings while gripping his knuckle till it bleeds. She just got back from the spectator's seat with a depressed attitude. After she arrived there, she wanted to see her father and talk about it. But she was met with an unamused Izawa standing at the door asking her why she was there, saying that this is a restricted area. She told him that she wanted to see him, saying that it was urgent, but Izawa won't budge and told her to leave, but she won't move. only for Izuku to threaten her that if she didn't leave then she would be disqualified. So she just walked away with a defeated look. She was listening to the match from the speakers around the stadium. Apparently, Shoto, Katsumi, and Shoka had won their matches. It wasn't a surprise since their quirk was suited for combat and they dominated the match right from the start. From the way she saw it, the top 6 are gonna be dominated by her group. Except by some miracle, Katsuki is gonna lose to 𝗬𝗧𝗏. Then she joined the rest of the class in their own seats when suddenly Present Mic made an announcement. There it is, the winner of 5th round is Momo Yaoyorozu. Soon the crowd starts to cheer at her victory. Momo did it. Mina cheered at her victory and some of them are clapping as well. Well, what did I miss? Izumi asked her and they were all surprised to see her. Where have you been? We've been looking over for you all the time. Shoto asked while wondering where she had just gone to. Well, it's a long story. Sorry for making you guys worry. I tell you about it later. Izumi replied while apologizing to the rest of the class. And now the 6th round of today's match, it's about to begin. Present Mic said while trying to hype the crowd that knew the next fight. Oh boy, Kirishima mumbled. Where's 𝗬𝗧𝗏? Izumi asked while worried for her a little bit. She just left around 5 minutes ago, saying that she needs to prepare for her match. Toru replied to her. Guys, is it just me, or did any of you begin to worry about this match as well? Kaminari said while looking at the arena with worried written all over his face. It's not just Udance's face. There's no telling what my brother would do to her. And that's a bad thing. Katsumi said while getting worried a bit. I hope nothing bad is gonna happen, Shoka said. Let's pray to God that it's true, Izumi said to all of them. From Class 1A, his personality is as explosive as his quirk. He blasts his way to victory in the cavalry battle. Give it up for Katsuki Bakugo. Present Mic said and the crowd was cheering at his entry, but he didn't get as much recognition as the other contestant and that pisses him off. And from Class 1A, her smile and bubbly attitude sure warmed the heart of the audience. Let's welcome Achiko 𝗬𝗧𝗏. Present Mic announces and the crowd goes wild and that just pisses Katsuki even more. Why is that pink cheek getting more attention than me? That should have been me, damn it. Katsuki thought while gritting his teeth in anger. Both of them enter the arena. They stare at each other waiting for midnight to start the match. Katsuki is looking as angry as always and waiting for the go sign so that he could blast her out of the ring. While 𝗬𝗧𝗏 was looking a little scared at him of what happened to Ida, but she won't back down and promise to win this for her parent and especially for her best friend Ida. Now, I want a nice clean fight from both of you, is that understand? Midnight said to both of them. 𝗬𝗧𝗏 was nodding at her and Katsuki was nodding at her while clicking his tongue. Seeing both of them already giving their confirmation, Midnight began to start the match. Now begin. Suddenly 𝗬𝗧𝗏 makes a mad dash toward Katsuki trying to touch him to win her match when unexpectedly Katsuki uses his quirk to blast her out of his way. She managed to dodge the blast and tried to touch him, but Katsuki kept firing off his explosion, which is forcing him to counterattack instead. Then Katsuki fires off a huge explosion towards her way, trying to force her out of the ring. But she keeps pressuring Katsuki by keeping going and trying to touch him, and once again he was forced to go on the defensive. But knowing Katsuki, defensive wasn't in his vocabulary, so he keeps blasting her out of the way and trying to send her flying from the ring. It kept going for nearly 10 minutes as the crowd was looking intensely at the fight between the two students. Every time 𝗬𝗧𝗏 went towards Bakugo, he just kept blasting her and forcing her to retreat, and it kept going over and over again. She couldn't touch him no matter what, and yet he still kept attacking her no matter what. She wanted to keep attacking him and making sure that he doesn't realize her plan at all. She knows that in terms of battle, she couldn't outmatch Bakugo. So she decided to try a different angle instead. And when Katsuki was just finished blasting her, she looked at Bakugo thinking that she had won this match. She released her quirk and a large number of debris began to fall from her quirk, effectively attacking Katsuki with a meteor shower from above. She believes that no matter what Katsuki does in response, she will be able to get in close and touch him. The crowd looked in amazement after seeing her plan in action. Some of the pros were to admit that this was a brilliant plan and a great way to utilize her quirk. Her classmate looked impressed that she had a plan all along to beat Katsuki, and they began to cheer on her hoping that this move will finish him. But it turns out, Katsuki still had more fight in him than she gave him credit for when suddenly he released a huge explosion upwards and blows away all the debris while keeping her back at the same time. She was shocked at the level of the explosion as it was a massive one. She thought that he had overused his quirk with all of those blasts, but it turns out, he still had plenty of gas in his tank. Now she had no idea what to do. That was her only plan and it failed miserably. Then Katsuki looked in her direction while smirking at her. That was a pretty good move, pink cheek. You had your fun, now it's my turn. She was already at the point of exhaustion and couldn't keep up with her footwork. Her vision is starting to get blurry as the situation had turned from her going for an offense to the defensive. Right now, she was desperately trying to avoid his blast, but she couldn't avoid it all as some of it managed to burn her skin a little bit. Her skin is starting to sting from the explosion and suddenly she receives one of his biggest explosions coming to her. 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗃 yelled out and a loud explosion covers the arena as she was being thrown out from the field, but she got pulled just before she could touch the outer ring. And the one that pulled her in was her attacker Katsuki. He smirked evilly while looking at her for almost getting thrown into the ring. She just had her fun back then, and now it's his turn instead. So he picks her up while saying to her face, "We're not done, pink cheek. Not until I say so myself," Katsuki said while smiling evilly at her. Then he threw her back to the middle of the field and kept blasting her over and over again. She kept trying to get up but Katsuki kept blasting her and once she was about to leave the arena, he propelled himself to went behind her. Right now, Katsuki had every attention to blast her to Kingdom Come. As he was trying to make a statement to everyone that no one messes with 𝗬𝗓𝗵𝗃𝗁 and gets away with it. The crowd was looking at this gruesome battle as the pros were booing at him. Some of them just looked away while others were horrified to see the battle. They began to realize that this isn't a battle no more. This is turning into a stomping ground. Katsuki was livid the moment that she had decided to run towards her the minute the match had started. First, he doesn't get as much recognition from the crowd as the others. Then she had the guts to went after him and try to beat him, which is unacceptable. And lastly, she thinks that they were fighting on the same level and she could win this fight. No one insult 𝗬𝗓𝗵𝗃𝗁, and certainly he won't lose to some extra from his class. He's 𝗬𝗓𝗵𝗃𝗁 and 𝗬𝗓𝗵𝗃𝗁 is the strongest in this school most of all. He doesn't lose and he's about to prove it. He kept blasting her while she was trying to get back to her feet. And suddenly he concentrates his explosion on his palm to create a huge blast and blast her out of the ring. The explosion was so powerful that it almost shattered the crowd's eardrums. She was thrown out of the ring and hit the wall of the arena. She just passed out from exhaustion and the blast really knocked her out cold. Midnight, who went there, began to check on her situation. Uraraka Ochako was thrown out of the arena. The winner of the 6th round is 𝗬𝗓𝗵𝗃𝗁. Midnight announced to the crowd Katsuki was looking at her from the distance and he was angry as hell. He wasn't done and suddenly she was already thrown out of the ring. This can't be happening. He refuses to accept it. This victory wasn't satisfactory for him. So he launches himself up in the air and makes a mad dive toward her while readying his quirk to blast her till she was finished for good. He needs to show her not to mess with 𝗬𝗓𝗵𝗃𝗁. He needs to show her where she belongs, and that is below his feet. Katsuki, Uraraka was already out of the arena. It's over. Midnight tells him, but he keeps going without listening to her words. She began to rip her clothes trying to use her quirk to make him out cold, but the explosion is blowing off her quirk, making it impossible for her to stop him. At this point, he's gonna beat Uraraka to the ground, or worse, he's gonna kill her. And just when he was about to reach her and blast her for good, he was losing the feel of his explosion and fall down on his way. He was landing with his face on the ground while wondering what just happened. He began to look around while feeling angry that someone dared to stop him. But he began to swallow his anger when suddenly he knows what was going on. He looked at the press box only to be met with a gaze from his homeroom teacher from the press box while using his quirk on the boy. He looked at him with so much anger radiating from him that even Mike was scared of him. And from the other side of the arena, The Class 1A that was sitting in the arena was also shaking profoundly as they began to feel their homeroom teacher's aura from there. It was almost like he was standing right next to him. Plus, not wanting to waste his time, Katsuki just clicked his tongue while grunting and leaving 𝗬𝗧𝗧𝗏 bruised up by herself while he walked away without looking at his opponent. She was weak, and the weak don't deserve sympathy. Aizawa couldn't believe his eyes when he saw that Katsuki was still trying to track 𝗬𝗧𝗏 even though she was already down, and the fact that he was looking tired but perfectly cheerful about it made his blood boil. He was running his thought about whether he decided to punish the boy right now or not when present mix sound broke his thought. Alright, folks, now welcome back to the one-on-one battle on this year's sports festival. Now let's get back to the show, shall we? Present Mike yelled. First up, we had the Queen of Destroyer herself. She breaks through all of the contestants' paths with her superpower quirk. Give it up for Izumi Yagi. Present Mike said, and the crowd goes wild with that statement. From Class 1A, his personality is as cold as his gaze, yet his smile is capable to warm the heart of the ladies. Give it up for Shoto Todoroki. Present Mike yelled out, and the ladies in the crowd began to chant his name. Both of them now enter the arena as they stare down at each other. One is brimming with excitement, while the other is filled with seriousness as both of them want to win this match so badly. Now, is everyone ready? Midnight asked both of them, and they just nodded to her question. Let the battle of the quarterfinals begin. And the person who makes the first move is Shoto as he uses his quirk to create an ice barrage, but Izumi generates a shockwave made from punching the air using one for all, thus breaking apart the ice. The shockwave from both of the attacks was very powerful and it nearly blew both of them to the back. Izumi used her telekinesis to propel herself so that she doesn't fall, and Shoto, who got blasted with the shockwave, immediately creates an ice shield to cover his back so that he doesn't get blown to the back and lose because of a ring out. Seeing how powerful Izumi has gotten, Shoto keeps continuing his assault by using his flames this time, but Izumi switched from using one for all to her telekinesis and creates a psychic barrier to stop the flames. Then he began to keep switching from using his ice to his flames, and Izumi just counters it at whatever he was throwing at her. Thus they continue to go back and forth. Seeing that Shoto had begun to get exhausted and a little frustrated that his attack had no effect, Izumi chose to use this chance to attack. She lifted a couple of the ice boulders that scattered around the arena and throw it at him. But Shoto uses his flames to create a fire blast and melt the ice immediately before it could hurt him. And suddenly Shoto launches an ice attack on her, not giving her a chance to breathe. The ice trapped her from head to toe, thus trapping her there. The ice had encapsulated her entire body covered in ice. Izumi Yagi has got herself trapped, folks. Is this the end of her? Present Mike announces. Silence rang throughout the stadium once more. Class 1A was looking in horror, and Shoto decided to break the silence. He turned to Midnight, asking her to call off the match, knowing that he already won. Just as she was about to declare the winner, the ice that trapped her began to crack, and all eyes turned back to the glacier that trapped Izumi. Each second the sound of the ice cracking began to hear, and everyone watched the crack that formed on the ice itself. When suddenly, Izumi managed to break through the ice and comes out from there. I don't believe it, folks. Izumi Yagi has come out from the ice that's trapped her. I've to say, this battle has turned into the next level, folks. Present Mike yelled, and the entire arena is filled with loud cheers. Soon she launches herself at him with the help of her telekinesis, trying to punch him using one for all. But Shoto was faster as he created an ice wall between them and blocked her assault. Izumi thought that switching from long-distance fight to a close distance would be an advantage for her, but Shoto is more talented than she thought, and his quirk is almost as versatile as hers. Wow, both of them are going at each other, Kirishima said in awe. Yeah, none of them giving each other a break. Tsuyu said while watching the scene in front of her. I don't know. I think Todoroki is gonna clinch this. Mina watched from her seat. Whoa, hold on, don't count out Izumi just yet. She's very strong, you know. Mineta claimed. You only said that because you made a bet with Kaminari, right? Tsuyu accused him, and the midget could only look away. Both of them were standing there exhausted as they were staring at each other. They kept staring down since they have overused their quirk, but Izumi still has more fight in her. Suddenly Shoto asked her something in the middle of the fight. "Izumi, I want to ask you something." Shoto asked her. "What is it?" Izumi said while feeling exhausted. "Do you think he would ever forgive me?" Shoto asked while looking down and not meeting her gaze. Her eyes were shot up when he asked that question. It was obvious who's Shoto mentioning and she couldn't find an answer to respond to it. "To be honest, I have no idea," Izumi said to him, and Shoto was taken back. "I want to say that he will forgive us for what we've done in the past, but if I say yes then it makes me nothing but a hypocrite. I know what we've done isn't forgivable, or something that can be redeemed, but I'm trying to live my life for him. I want to be a hero not just for fulfilling my selfish need, but for his name too. I want to be a hero that my brother could be proud of. No matter how long or painful it is, I will do it," Izumi answered while looking at him. Shoto could only stand in there frozen in his track as he just listened to her answer. It's true, they couldn't change the past no matter how hard they tried. So he decided that he will also change, not for his sake only but for his friend as well. "Thank you, Izumi." Shoto answered. Finally find his answered. "You're welcome, Shoto. Now what do you say we wrap things up right now?" Izumi said as she charged one for all one more time to her maximum output. "Sounds good to me," Shoto said while smiling, which is kinda weird considering he rarely smiles. He began to power up both of his quirks as well. Suddenly both flames and ice began to erupt from his body. Both his ice and flame began to power up at the same time, creating a surge of power in the middle of the arena. Izumi also powered up her right arm with a combination of One for All and her telekinesis into one concentrated point to give her the maximum damage that she needed to win the matches. What this? It looks like both Izumi Yagi and Shoto Todoroki have decided to settle this once and for all. I gotta tell you, folks, this has been a heated battle for today's match. Present my comments. Seeing this, both Midnight and 𝗵𝗃𝗲 began to worry about the outcome of this match. With that much power on both of them, they could seriously hurt each other very badly. This is bad. At this point both of them are done for. Midnight said as she began to rip her clothes off. 𝗵𝗃𝗲, you need to stop this. I'm on it. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 running towards the arena. He began to form a huge wall between the two of them while they began to clash with each other. As they both clashed, a huge explosion began to form in the arena, almost as if someone just detonates a landmine in UA Stadium. The crowd began to blow away, while some of the pro hero that was watching couldn't hold their feet for long as the gust of the wind was too strong. Class 1A couldn't believe their eyes as two powerhouses from their class began to duke it out with each other. Even Katsuki, who watched this, were completely speechless. As Midnight and 𝗵𝗃𝗲 slowly stood up while looking at the arena that was being destroyed in half, she tried to figure out what just happened to both of them after their showdown. Then she saw Todoroki laying down on his back while Izumi is still standing while raising her right fist, signaling her winning. Shoto Todoroki wasn't able to continue. The winner is Izumi Yagi, Midnight announced. And suddenly the crowd goes wild at the spectacular fight that just happened in their eyes. It was amazing to see the two future heroes showing off that kind of power. It's breathtaking as they just finished watching the contest between two promising heroes. The crowd was cheering at their name, congratulating both of them for the amazing fight they just put up, while the pro was looking amused and can't wait to invite them to their agency for their internship. Soon the infirmary bot was taking both of them to the infirmary, while 𝗵𝗃𝗲 used his quirk to create a new arena for the next match. Unknowingly for everyone in the arena, a mysterious person was watching on the top of the arena rooftop, watching the match that was happening down there. And when Present Mike declared Izumi is the winner, the mysterious person smirked and left the scene. As their battle came to an end, they both arrive at the infirmary, and Recovery Girl was there to treat both of their injuries. She scolded both of them for their reckless action and lectured them for their idiocy. Once they were rested enough, they both lay on their bed in complete silence. And Shoto decided to break it by asking her a question while he was still laying in his bed. Izumi, Shoto called out her name. Izumi responds while trying to get up from her bed. Do you forgive me for what happened that day? Shoto asked while avoiding his gaze at Izumi. Izumi was silent with his question while began to think about the awful memories in that alley where her brother was being crucified by an ice spike, courtesy of Shoto's handiwork. At first, she was mad at his action for his action, but she knew better than not to judge his action. Compared to what she had done before, Shoto's action was not as bad as her previous deeds. I still think about it sometimes, Izumi, what happened at that alley that night. Where I stabbed his hand with that ice and his scream echoed from that night. Where I burned his skin and he was pleading to stop but we didn't listen. And where I sometimes enjoyed it listening to his cry for help. Shoto told her, when we were coming back from 𝗬𝗧𝗵𝗲, my mom yelled at us for the first time. She was crying while screaming at us, telling us how she didn't raise a monster. She was disappointed in us and all I could at that day was just stare at my own feet. Shoto continued to tell her, my mom kept thinking that it was as if she was the one that tortured him instead, saying that she almost felt that because of her quirk that Izuku was suffering. Shoto said while crying his eyes out. You know, my mom told me that the reason she decided to be a hero is to bring hope and a smile to children. She spent her entire career being a rescue hero just so she wants to bring hope to people every time they saw her quirk in action trying to save them. But it turns out, me along with Shoka use it to bring misery and torture people for fun. Izumi called out to him but he wasn't listening to her call. I couldn't sleep, Izumi, Shoto said while shaking a bit and grabbing his hair. Sometimes I could see him in my mirror when we were in my room. I saw him bloodied and staring at me. I closed my eyes and sometimes I saw his image in my bedroom. When I was walking into the UA hall, I could see him smiling at me all bloodied. When I was sitting in class, he was standing near me looking at me while crying BLD, asking me why I hurt him. I should have never done it, Izumi, Shoto cried while speaking from his heart. I don't know what else to say. If I had just asked him to sit down and explain to him why we were doing this, then maybe he would still be alive right now. I would have let him scream, yelled at me, hit me till he was satisfied and I would have accepted it. Then suddenly Shoto broke down crying while looking pathetic in his mind. He never broke down crying like this, and the last he ever acted like this was when her mother cried in disappointment with their action while her father was scolding him heavily that night. Ever since what happened, things haven't been the same in Todoroki's household. Her father looked at them in disgust, thinking that their power had gone through their head. Both of their siblings were angry at their actions and sometimes refuses to be in the same room as them. They just got up and leave every time one or both of them enter a room. But the worst of all is how her mother would act. Whenever her mother would come to a room with either one or both of them, she would look at them in disappointment while sometimes looking at them as if they were monsters and getting angry for no apparent reason. She retired from being a hero because she couldn't face the public knowing what her children have done. Not to mention, she had developed a trauma with her quirk. Every time she would use it, she kept thinking about Izuku and how he would suffer because of the quirk that her children had caused, making her had gone through a traumatic event. The one household that brimmed with joy and warmth is now filled with emptiness and void. No longer they would train in the backyard or watch television or perhaps gather in a dining room to enjoy a home-cooked meal. Instead, they all just left one by one, and it's all because of them. He had no idea what to do in this situation. He already tried to go to his grave along with her sister, begging for his forgiveness while keep repeating how sorry they are. But no matter what, he still couldn't forgive himself for what happened that day. It's almost like karma has gone to hits you back in life. But suddenly Shoto felt a hand touches his palm, and he looked at it only to see Izumi hold his palm while smiling softly at him. He tried to yank her hand thinking that he didn't deserve it, but she didn't let go of his hand while looking him in the eye. To be honest, I want to be mad at you, Izumi said to him. I never realize how much important my brother is in my life. And when he was already gone, I felt for the first time, there's a hole in my heart that was filled with my brother's presence. When I went to open his room for the first time in 10 years along with my parents, I saw the room and all I see was nothing but an empty void. I was crying on my knees while thinking how could I treat my brother like this, while my mom is telling me that we need to be strong. Izumi said, and her eyes is starting to get wet. There I saw my brother living in a room that is the size of my closet, while our house is big enough for 10 people to live in there. And there's a scrap of leftover dinner on the floor, where he took it from the trash bin. His dirty clothes are on the floor and I walk around the house with my brand new clothes. All of this is happening right under our eyes. It only shows us how badly we're screwing his life. That we sucked the life out of his soul every day. Izumi cried while speaking her words. Once this festival is over, let's go together along with your sister and our classmate. Let's pay him a visit again, okay? Izumi asked him while smiling at him. Her smile suddenly warmed his heart, and for the first time in a long time, he felt peace. Before Shoto could give a response, suddenly the infirmary door was opened loudly and Shoto and Izumi were startled a bit when they could see Shoka, Jairu, and Shoji carrying Momo with a lot of bruises covering her face, and her head is bleeding hard. Recovery girl, it's emergency quick. She needs help. Jiro yelled looking for the heroine. Soon she comes from her office. What ISO my goodness. Quick put her on the bed now. She yelled and quickly run in her direction. They immediately put her on the bed carefully while she takes a look at her condition. Jiro looked terrified seeing her friend being bloodied on the ground. Shoka, Shoji, what's going on? What happened? She asked while wondering what just happened to her while she was in the med bay. Flashback start after Izumi's fight was finished. Present Mike began the second fight between Shoka and Katsumi. A clash between two raw power. Katsumi shows an incredible display of power and her opponent is also showing a lot of skills as well. The match was close, but Shoka's overwhelming power and her display of skill managed to clinch her victory as she was able to throw back whatever Katsumi threw at her. The crowd congratulates both of them saying that their fight was incredible, while some of the pro heroes are also shown a lot of interest in their quirk and were dying to invite them to their agency. Alright folks, now let's begin the final match of today's quarterfinals. Her beauty managed to enchant the heart of everyone as her quirk is limited by her imagination. Give it up to our creation lady, Momo Yaoyorozu. Present Mike said and most of the male contestants and the audience began to cheer on her. And finally, his explosive attitude is bringing nightmares to your children. Mothers, lock up your daughter. Here comes Katsuki Bakugo. Present Mike said as he tried to lift the sour attitude of the audience around Bakugo with that joke, and some of the crowd began to laugh at Mike's comment, including a certain blonde hair from Class 1B. It's a contest between brain versus brawn. The crowd began to watch closely to this match wondering who's gonna win and move to the semifinal. Katsuki, who listened to his entry line, began to look angry as they make him as if he was a joke and not to be taken seriously. He began to walk to the arena while looking at his opponent as he was ready to blast her out of his way. Now I want a nice clean fight between both of you, is that understand? She asked while looking at both of them. Yes, ma'am, Momo answered. That goes for you too, Bakugo. Midnight said one more time to him. Yeah, I get it, Katsuki said. Midnight, who saw this, began to look worried for both of them, because of Bakugo's last match that tried to put 𝗬𝗧𝗏 down for good. That's why Nizu had given her full authority to stop this match if she began to see any suspicious behavior around Bakugo. There's also a little part of her hoping that Yaoyorozu would have just surrendered before the fight could have begun so that she could avoid getting hurt. Don't get her wrong, she hates all of the students in that class, but she had to admit that some of them are starting to change for the better, and Yaoyorozu is one of them. Without further ado, Midnight began to start the match, although she hesitated for a moment. Now let the battle begin. Right from the start, Katsuki began to launch himself toward her and tried to explode her from the start. He knows she wasn't a match against him, so he doesn't want to waste his time dealing with a loser like her. So he's gonna try to finish this match as quickly as possible. Katsuki yelled while readying his explosion. Katsuki let out a massive explosion that engulfed the entire arena. The crowd could only see the massive dust covering the arena that Katsuki had started. But suddenly, the dust was blown away by Momo, creating a huge riot shield. She looked at him from the side of the shield while smirking at him. It won't be that easy, Bakugo. What? Katsuki was shocked as she was able to block herself from that explosion. Then suddenly out of the dust, Momo came with a metal bow staff, smash him in the face, and hit him with the riot shield, shocking the crowd with her quick thinking. Momo came at him by hitting him with the bow staff, then kicked his stomach, causing him to stumble a little, and that irritates the hell out of him. How dare you hit me, you beach! Katsuki stood up completely angry. He started to make sparks using the explosion on his palm. Momo charged at him, But Katsuki released an explosion on her way. She managed to avoid it and was about to land a hit on him, but Katsuki used his explosion and sent her down. Katsuki launched himself against her, but she managed to create a riot shield one more time, blocking his explosion. Katsuki jumped over it and landed on her back while trying to hit her from her behind, only for a second riot shield to meet with his explosion. Wow folks, Katsuki Bakugo has begun his relentless onslaught, but Momo Yaoyorozu was able to block him using her quick thinking on her quirk. It's a one match you don't want to miss. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗁 yelled out. Then Katsuki began to launch another explosion, but Momo kept guarding against it. Bakugo kept trying to gain the advantage in this match, but it wasn't working. And when he tried to launch another explosion, Momo went to him with her shield up and guarding her against the explosion and slammed him, trying to push him out of the ring. Katsuki tried to blast the shield again, hoping the explosion would start to crack the shield by now, but suddenly she was ready with a stun gun and shocked the hell out of him. What's this? Momo Yaoyorozu is dropping one of her shields to create a stun gun to hit Katsuki, and it worked. She's dropping her defense to create an opening for her. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗁 announced, and some of the audience began to cheer for her. He began to get frustrated as she managed to counter his move and shock him with that toy of hers. She's trying to humiliate him in front of this audience, and he could feel their eyes of them that look down on him, and it's making his blood boil. Now's her chance. Finish him, Momo, 𝗬𝗪 said from her seat. Momo, who saw him still trying to recover from the shock, began to create a metal bat to hit him in the face, hoping that would be enough to knock him out cold. But before the bat could meet his face, Katsuki grabbed the bat and looked at her with an angered look on his face. Don't you dare look down on me, you bitch! Katsuki screamed as he began to launch a huge explosion at her. The size of that explosion managed to engulf the arena with smoke as the crowd couldn't see anything, just like before, but this time the size of his explosion is way bigger compared to the one that he fired at the beginning of the match. And out of nowhere, something is hitting the wall of the arena and they couldn't see it. Izawa said as he looked at the scene from the press box along with Mike. Midnight, who saw this, began to run towards the wall, only to be met with Momo landing on her back with blood beginning to drop from her head. Her face and body are covered with a bruise, and some of her clothes are starting to rip apart because of the explosion. She tried to wake her up, but she wasn't responding to her call at all. Midnight, who saw this, began to panic because one of the students is having a major injury. 𝗬𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗃, call a medic now. Midnight yelled through the arena. Everyone began to panic the moment Midnight yelled for a medic. 𝗬𝗪, who saw her friend get thrown to the side, began to run to the arena, along with Shoka, who was nearby and worried for her safety. Midnight checked for a pulse, but she got nothing. Then she started to apply CPR to her, hoping to get a pulse. Then she got her pulse back, but it was faint. Then she saw both 𝗎𝗪 and Shoka, and she had an idea of how to save her, which requires her help. Shoka, I need you to freeze her, Midnight said. What? She was shocked after hearing that. I need you to freeze her body long enough so that her bleeding is stopped, then you need to take her to the infirmary. It's an emergency, Midnight yelled at her. But Shoka was shaking as she was told to freeze someone completely. 𝗬𝗪, who heard it, began to cry frantically, knowing that her friend could be dying at this moment. Shoka, if you don't do it, then Momo is gonna die. Please, I'm begging you, 𝗬𝗪 pleads with her. Shoka, who saw her friend crying, began to firm her resolve and tried to save her friend. All right, I'll do it, Shoka said while readying her quirk. Then Shoka began to touch her and used her quirk to freeze her injuries. After her injuries were frozen, they carried her, but they weren't strong enough to carry her, so Shoji volunteered to carry her to the infirmary. Flashback end. When 𝗬𝗪 had finished telling them what was going on, none of them were making any sounds as they were surprised at what just happened. The sound of a ticking clock and flipping pages of the medical report were going through their ears. The light has a very low buzzing sound, and Izumi is starting to get up from her bed right away. Where are you going, Izumi? Shoka asked her. What do you think, I'm gonna kill him? Izumi answered her question. They immediately break from the trance as they heard Izumi answer, and the first one to react is 𝗬𝗪. What? Hold on. Izumi just calms down, okay? 𝗬𝗪 tells her before she's going on a killing spree. No, I will not, 𝗬𝗪, Izumi said as she was making her way toward the doorway, only to be blocked by Shoka. He's gone too far this time and I won't stand for it. Izumi, I know that you're pissed that Momo got injured, but you can't just go out there and attack him. Think of our situation, Izumi. Shoka said while pleading with her to stop. I don't care, Shoka. Out of my way. Izumi said as she began to power up one for all, but before both of them could get on each other's throat, Shoto decided to intervene in the matter. She's right, he said, and immediately Izumi's head turned around in his direction. You can't be serious. You of all people. Izumi asked in disbelief. Look, I know that you were pissed that Momo got hurt and so am I, and if I had a chance to pay him back I would do it in a heartbeat, but you need to realize that our class situation is complicated. If you go out there and beat the hell out of Katsuki, then you'll throw everything that you've been working on for your redemption. Not to mention that you'll be throwing your career out of the way. Shoto explained to her. As much as she hated to say it, Shoto was right. Going on an act of revenge on Katsuki won't solve the matter. It only put her on the chopping block along with Katsuki and satisfied her need to make him pay. So she immediately powers down her quirk while grunting at their situation and hoping that Katsuki gets what he deserves. Then suddenly the speaker is starting to announce the match is about to start, telling her that she needs to go to the arena in 5 minutes. She wants to stay, but Jiryu tells Izumi and Shoka that Momo is going to be fine and they need to go there or they would be disqualified. So they say goodbye and tell them to win the match and get back at Katsuki. They sprinted their way to the arena and readied themselves to face off against Katsuki in the finals. Both Izumi and Shoka were standing in their respective hall, waiting for their names to be called out. The sound of cheers calling out for their name to be called wasn't getting through to Izumi's earshot. She was trying to focus and bring herself to calm down, readying for the next fight. They are standing there while preparing themselves for the upcoming battle. Izumi was standing there by herself while reading herself for what was coming her way. She knows that her relationship with Katsuki is already strained, but lashing out his frustration toward others doesn't justify his action at all. So the only thing she could do right now is to make him pay for what he's done to them. She will make him pay for what he did to others that suffered because of him. She would win this match no matter what. For Ida, for Ochako, for Momo, but most importantly for her brother, so she walked from there after President Mike called out her name, readying herself to face her opponent and win this no matter what. She couldn't allow herself to lose in this match no matter what. Alright everyone, it's time for what you've all been waiting for. The finals of this year's sports festival are about to begin. President Mike announced to the audience. For this year's final match, we decided to make this interesting. President Mike said. Since there are only 3 students left, we decided to make this year's final match to be a battle royal between 3 people. And the crowds cheer loudly with this revelation, knowing that this is going to be interesting. For our first contestant, it's the ace of Class 1A. She has won her match with her strength, the embodiment of strength herself. I give you Izumi Yagi. She entered the arena and all of them cheered on her name. And for our next contestant, she had won her battle gracefully with her quirk and skills. The princess of dual element, Shoka Todoroki. And the crowd goes wild, especially the male that cheers on them the loudest as they are enchanted by her beauty. And for our last contestant, he's a warrior that strikes his opponent with his explosive strength and might. The embodiment of victory, Katsuki Bakugo. He entered the arena and the crowd was booing at him the moment he stepped into the arena. He wasn't pleased with this treatment at all, as he just gritted his teeth in anger while holding himself, not yelling out in frustration after the principal warned that another incident was just like before and he could kiss his career goodbye. So he needs to play nicely in this match as much as he hates it. All 3 of them enter the arena while staring intensely at each other. One of them is wanting to win for others' sake. The other is want to win to prove herself in this tournament, while the other wants to win for his ego and his pride. You beach is ready to lose. Katsuki asked both of them. You're the one who's gonna lose. Izumi retort back. Shoka just silently stood there while looking at both of them. I'll win this match, Izumi, and once you see how strong I got, you'll realize that you and I were meant to be together, Katsuki said while smirking at her. I'll see that you still haven't realized your mistake. Fine, guess I've to knock some sense into you. Izumi said as she fixed her posture. Shoka and Katsuki follow suit as they were getting ready to fight. Midnight, who was standing between them, paid close attention to these three, and she could tell that this is going to be brutal. You know the rule. This is a battle royal. Whoever is the last person still standing is the winner. You are allowed to work with other contestants as long as you don't cause any permanent injuries, or you will be disqualified immediately. Is that understood? Midnight explained the rule, and take a look at all three of them. They all were nodding to her explanation while waiting for her to start the match immediately. For a moment, she hesitated, but she began to start it anyways. The battle royal of this year's sports festival began. Midnight announces, and all three of them are immediately charged to each other. Bakugo make the first move as she came in rushing with his right arm swinging at Izumi with his explosion ready in hand. But Izumi kicks his right arm up, making his explosion to be useless. Then Izumi use one for all at 10% to punch him, only for Katsuki to propel himself to the sky while avoiding her punch. He landed on the ground while readying his explosion to attack her from behind, but suddenly a burst of flame began to hit him, making him retreat from there. "Don't forget I'm also here as well," Shoka said while readying her quirk. Katsuki was mad that this speech was making him lose his chance to attack Izumi. If she hadn't blocked him, then he probably already beat Izumi right now. Izumi then began to rush in toward Katsuki by using a combination of one for all and telekinesis to charge ahead at Katsuki. After she closed the gap, she began to punch him straight in the gut. "One for all 10% Delaware smash," Izumi said as she punched him. Katsuki was stumbled with the punch but able to recover as he propelled himself toward Izumi readying to blast her. But Shoka creates an ice wall blocking his way. And when he broke the ice with his explosion, he was met with Izumi's fist on his face. "These two were ganging up on me. What the hell is going on?" Katsuki thought as he was getting pummeled on both sides. What seems to be a battle royal turns out to be a 2-on-1 match as both of them teaming up against Katsuki. He was furious as to why these two were beating him up. They should have fought each other and he would finish them up, making him the winner, but right now it's turning into a team match. He hated to admit it, but beating two of them at the same time would be too much for him. But he's Katsuki Bakugo. He's gonna be the next #1 hero. And this kind of obstacle won't stop him on his track. So he decided to pick them one by one to make it easy, and he start with Shoka. Beating both of them at the same time would be difficult, so he's gonna start with the weakest first. He creates a sphere of light between his hands that explodes into a large-scale flash, thus using one of his ultimate moves. Stun Grenade. Katsuki yelled out his move. The flash of light is blinding both of them, making them immobilize for a while, leaving them to stop in their track. Katsuki decides to use this chance to take out Shoka as quickly as possible. He jumped straight ahead and readied his explosion to hit her. Right in the face. But she quickly created an ice wall to cover herself, but Katsuki, who saw that, began his barrage attack as he demolished the wall of ice over and over again, and when he was finished breaking the last wall, he was met with a dropkick from Izumi. Apparently, when Katsuki used his stun grenade, Izumi was jumping in the air, making her not get affected by his attack. She used a combination between one for all and telekinesis to levitate herself in the air. Then when Katsuki was about to attack Shoka, Izumi decided to jump in and kick him out of her way. Katsuki began to feel infuriated as they kept attacking him no matter what. What is their deal anyway? Why do they keep ganging up on him? As he started to get frustrated, he began to attack recklessly because he was blinded by anger. His movement is getting sloppy and easy to predict. And that's making both of them attack him at the same time. Katsuki is starting to lose his footing as none of his attacks aren't working, and he's starting to lose balance as he couldn't handle the attack between Izumi telekinesis and one for all and Shoka ice and flame attack. Right now Katsuki is having an internal struggle as he is trying to understand what's happening to him. He was always told since he was little that he was the best. Whether it's academic or not, he always excels in it no matter what. People called him a prodigy at that time. The next great hero of this era. He always thinks of himself as the best, that he was special and everyone isn't. That he was born for great things while others aren't. And when he saw an All Might TV show when he was little, watching him always win no matter what, It began to light a fire in his spirit. That he wanted to be just like him. He wanted to win just like All Might. So he decided to train himself to the limit. He wants to be strong just like All Might. He wants to prove what a great hero he is. The one that always wins no matter the situation. The best hero there is. Everyone who disrespects him, everyone who looked down on him soon were on their knees begging him for mercy. No one dared to look down on him because he was always on top. So why is he losing in this fight right now? Surely he's not gonna lose, right? Because he was the best, his friends said so. His peers say that he was the best. His old teachers told him that he would be an amazing hero. He held the highest entrance score exam. He has a quirk suited for heroism and the skills to be one. He has met all the standards for pursuing to be a hero. So why is he losing in this match? Katsuki began to lose his footing as he's starting to stumble a bit. His mind is starting to lose consciousness and he couldn't properly stand up. The beatdown from both of them was too much for him to handle. He wanted to continue fighting, but his body betrayed him by saying that this is his limit. Izumi, who saw that, began to power up her quirk and give him the finishing blow. Detroit Smash. Izumi yelled out her finishing move. She immediately just straight punched him as he began to fly towards the outer ring. He began to get sent flying out of the ring, and that was the last thing he heard before he lost consciousness. And for the first time in his life, Katsuki's back had touched the ground. Katsuki was slowly open his eyes to see a white ceiling and feeling a dull pain in his body. He's laying in a bed as he wakes up while smelling anesthetics from the room. He looked around as he realized that he was in an infirmary. He tried to move his arm, but unfortunately, it was being wrapped by a bandage and there was a needle placed on his hand. There's an 4 tube placed on the back of his right hand. His body is feeling sore from the pain. He tried to remember what was happening to him as he remembered that he got his butt kicked by those 2 beaches. Then all of a sudden he blacked out and couldn't remember a thing. Katsuki was trying to remember what happened and how did he get all of this bruised when suddenly the door was opened and Recovery Girl entered the room while carrying a medical report. "Ah, you're awake," she said while looking at the conscious boy in front of him. "What happened?" he asked while feeling a lot of pain. "Let's see. You have 5 broken ribs along with a broken nose, a fractured arm and multiple internal injuries. You had a concussion which explains your dizziness. Not to mention, you're losing quite a lot of BLD, so we had to give you a transfusion. Other than that, you're good to go," she said as she finished reading her report while sitting in her chair. "What happened to the match? Did I win?" Katsuki asked about the match and she just raised an eyebrow. "Not by a long shot, kid. You were the first one that got knocked out of the ring. The Yagi brat won the match," she said, and Katsuki was fuming after hearing the news. He lost the match. This can't be happening. This isn't supposed to be. He should have this match in the bag. There's no way he would lose, especially to those 2. Ever since he got reprimanded from the battle training, everything started to go downhill for him. Things didn't go the way he wanted. And he wondered himself why this is happening. Why is everything didn't go as he expected? Some of your friends came to visit you, but since you were still sleeping, I told them to leave you for a while. At least till you get back at your feet, she said as she began to get up from her seat. I'll leave you alone for a while. The ceremony is starting in an hour, she said as she exited the room. Oh, I almost forgot. 𝗍𝗂 wants you in his office tomorrow morning. So don't be late, she said as he only nodded at her while grunting. He lay down on his bed and began to think about what's gonna happen to him tomorrow morning. Guess perhaps that it has something to do with his match at the sports festival where he gets chewed off for his action and he just gonna stand there pretending to listen and internally rolling his eye. While continuing to grunt, he grabs bottled water from the side of his bed and drinks from it, only for someone to enter the room. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, someone said to Katsuki, and he choked after hearing the voices. He looked in the direction of the voice who was standing in the doorway. It was a young male with short curly dark green hair. He was at least 5'6" tall with well-built muscles wearing a black leather jacket. His eyes are the same color as his hair and he had a scar on his right eye as he stared at him right through his soul. That face. Sure, it was different from how he used to know him, but he couldn't forget that face no matter what. He said while gasping as he looked at the boy in front of him. He was standing there smirking at him while crossing both of his arms, looking at his injury and his smile turning mockingly. His ghost from the past is standing in front of him as he just staring at him. "I must be losing my mind," Katsuki said while hitting his head over and over. "Guess Izumi's punch must have given him a concussion or something, 'cause he starts to hallucinate." "Of course you are. Why else would you sit there licking your wound like a pathetic little puppy?" he said while mocking him. "You're not right in the head, Kaken. That's why I'm here, to set you straight." He smiled as he began to walk away from the med bay. Katsuki rubs his eyes to see what is going on, only to find that the room is empty just like before. He thought that he saw Deku back there, but guess he was wrong. He should it off and drink the water again till it was empty. Guess the anesthetics were giving him some sort of hallucination effect. After the fights have concluded, the ceremony for this year's sports festival is about to begin. The podium is currently being filled by the winner of the sports festival, with Katsuki in third place, Shoka in second, and Izumi in first. All three of them are standing on the podium with their heads held up high. Except for Katsuki, who had to be restrained by an iron cuff and pinned to a concrete box as he was lashing out while able to make a muffled roar thanks to the muzzle placed on him. "Alright, let's proceed to give the medals to the winner." And the ceremony is about to begin. Present Mike shouted, and before Midnight could announce the winner, a 250 PND muscle head in spandex flipped into the stadium. "Haha, it is I, All Might, and I am here to hand the medals," All Might claimed loudly while laughing. The crowd goes wild as the symbol of peace is starting to make his appearance. He took the medal from Midnight's hand and decided that he would hand the medal to the three winners. First, he went to Katsuki to put the medal on his neck, but he kept lashing out at him. "Young Bakugo, you have shown a great amount of talent. I know that one day, you would be an amazing hero." He tried to put the medal on his neck, but he kept moving around acting feral. "All Might, this doesn't count as a victory for me, alright? I want a rematch one more time, you hear me? I'm not accepting this victory at all. This is nothing but a fluke, you hear me?" Katsuki yelled out in fury as the whole stadium could hear his ranting. "Then accept this medal as a sign of a wound. One that you could move on someday," All Might said as he handed the medal to him. "I don't want it, you hear me, All Might," Katsuki yelled back, but All Might put the medal on his teeth, forcing him to accept it. "Young Todoroki, you have proven to be a spectacular hero. I hope that one day you will find your path," All Might said as he handed the medal around her neck. "Thank you, All Might, I appreciated it," Shoka said while smiling softly. "Young Yagi, you have shown many traits to be a great hero. I hope that someday, you would be an amazing hero," All Might said as he handed the medal to her. "Thank you, All Might, I'll do my best," Izumi said while smiling at him. "Now let's applause to this year's sports festival winner," All Might said to the crowd, and the crowd clapped their hands together, giving them applause. Katsuki kept grunting at the podium while being chained to the ground. He tried to shake the medal in his mouth, but it won't come off. He couldn't accept this victory at all. How is he supposed to be proud while being in third place? And while he's grunting and looking at the crowd clapping their hands to congratulate them, he saw Deku once more standing on the audience seat while clapping his hands slowly. He was stupefied as he saw him standing among the crowd while smiling at him and leaving the stadium. That's not possible. The last time he saw him was when he was resting in the infirmary after he got his butt handed to him. Now he saw him once more standing in the arena. Then suddenly he was gone again, nowhere to be found, leaving Katsuki dumbstruck at where he stood. "Now, let's say together with me, folks. Plus ultra," All Might said loudly, and all of the audience was following suit with him except for Katsuki, who was too shocked by the image of Deku in his mind.